And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, it's time for the finest Unfiltered roundtable. So, good morning, everyone. There's a lot to talk about. Numerous topics that are definitely conversation worthy from New York City and the NYPD. First off, and of course, priority. It's definitely a tragedy. A 22-year-old man in New York City dies. Exactly what is the cause of death? We don't know. So there's every reason to believe possible overdose. That's what we're getting information right now that came out from the New York Post and any articles or materials in regards to this incident. Now, of course, two cops at the scene were put in a very precarious position. And the question here is, what emphasis are on the cops and what responsibility and accountability do cops have when people are in an emergency situation where they need medical attention, waiting on EMS? At what point do the cops have to take action on themselves? And it's a horrible position to be. Two cops on patrol. You're at a 911 call. Clearly, it's an emergency situation. You're not a paramedic. Unfortunately, people expect cops to do everything, but cops are not paramedics. And they did their job. They requested EMS as they're supposed to, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited. Horrible position for them to be in. And eventually, they put this young man in their police car. They put him in the patrol car and took off to the hospital. Unfortunately, this young man still met his demise. Now, would it have made a difference if EMS was there immediately or not? We'll never know until we get a full autopsy. We don't know that. And I don't know if we will ever know that. So, to me, at this point, I think the NYPD, to protect these cops and to do the right thing moving forward, should come out with some type of mission. There should be some type of vision so the cops know if you're in a situation, you request EMS, and EMS is not there, and this is an emergency situation. I don't know what the amount of times that should lapse before they put someone in the back of the patrol car, what that mission should be, but there should be some correlation between the NYPD and EMS and doctors and determine when the NYPD has to take action on themselves. Do I blame the paramedics? I don't necessarily know exactly what happened. Paramedics I worked with in the Bronx and in Staten Island and Manhattan, they were fantastic. So we don't know where the failure is in this system. Obviously, something failed. But going forward, I believe there should be something for the cops, some type of mission and directive so that the cops have an idea, a guide of when to take action on themselves, because it's terrible to be put in that position, and the accountability and responsibility should not be on them. But unfortunately, no one wants to watch someone dying in front of their eyes. So kudos to these cops for eventually taking action as they did. So let's jump into this. Good morning, guys. Good morning, Marlon. Good morning, John. John, take it away, brother.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We got a lot of stuff today to get through. So we're going to be talking about the 911 system in New York City. And, that is all-encompassing FDNY, NYPD, EMS, anything you should need for an emergency situation. We're also going to be talking about the Washington, D.C., the crime stat manipulation, because it ties in pretty heavily with the topic that we're about to discuss here. We're going to go into the super speeders bill because they already said they're putting that in the budget. So that's something that New Yorkers are going to be dealing with. So we're going to show you all the stuff that came out about that in the last few days. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about Captain Wilson, is who people call him Big Balls Wilson, So we're going to get into that. We'll give you our thoughts and opinions about that. That'll basically be the show. It's going to take us a little while to get through. But the first topic, we're talking about Adam Benahamu, 22 years old, of East Harlem. Saturday night, 911 call was called at East 116th Street, right near Lexington Avenue. So the original 911 call comes in at 5:13 p.m. At 5:40, the cops respond. So that's 27-minute response time for a disorderly male acting erratically. If you think about that 911 call at 5:13, that's an automatic dispatch of both the police and EMS. So at 5:13, that happens. At 5:40, the cops arrive. So it takes 27 minutes for the cops to get there. My opinion, we already failed. We already failed. And this ties into a lot of different things. This ties into when we talk about crime stat manipulation, but we also talk about the numbers in the NYPD, the manipulation, the clear manipulation that's happening there, where, we're still waiting to hear from the police commissioner the numbers in most of these commands throughout the city. Like most of these city council members, not that they're your friend, but they have no idea how many cops are in their command, what's their allotted average, what they should have. And that's not just for the NYPD. That also consists of EMS. And I'll bring you that as we go through this, where EMS is doing nearly the same exact thing that the NYPD is doing. So, a lot of this ties into like, hey, well, why did they encrypt the radios? They encrypted the radios so you wouldn't see these response times. So 27 minutes the cops get there. Immediately upon them getting there, the male's acting erratic. He's telling them he's having trouble breathing. They call for EMS. They request EMS there. So let's just pretend the first EMS call is at 5:40. I'm going to say absolutely not. I'm going to say that EMS call came over at 5:13, and it took 27 minutes for just the cops to get there. But the cops call at 5:40. So at 6:05, which is nearly 25 minutes later, the cops make a second call for EMS. Now, if those of you aren't familiar with Local Law 119, I suggest you look up Local Law 119. Why the NYPD is not into that local law, I have no idea. But Local Law 119 tracks the response times for EMS and for FDNY. I'll bring that up in a little bit. I'll show you that. So we're already way outside of those guidelines and what the FDNY tells you is the average response time for these situations. So for 20 minutes, nobody gets there. The cops at 6:25 p.m. decide, all right, this guy's not looking good. We got to get him out of here. Looks like excited delirium. Excited delirium is a state when someone's running around, they're heating up. They look like they're about to die as opposed to drug use. They throw him in the back of the car because he starts to go unconscious. They get him to Harlem Hospital at 6:29. So only 4 minutes. It takes the cops 4 minutes. That's how close this individual is from the hospital. He's literally around the block. Like it took 4 minutes for them to get there. And then if those of you in New York City, it might be like 4 minutes. 4 minutes is like that's how close it is. It takes you 4 minutes to drive 2 blocks in New York City. So it's right around the block. At 6:56, Adams pronounced dead. Now, would it have mattered if he got there at 5:20? We don't know these things. But the one thing I do know is this. I know that is a ridiculous response time. Over an hour it took to get someone who needs medical attention to a hospital that's literally he could have walked to quicker. He could have walked around the block. Like that is just completely unacceptable. And it shows a lot of the things that we've been talking about here that with all of the manipulation, when we talk about response times, when we talk about manpower, when we talk about crime stats, and, this young man's dead. Now, obviously, EMS didn't kill him. The cops didn't kill him, but they didn't help him either.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Hope everyone had a great week. Yeah. So just a quick housekeeping, right? This is the article we're referencing. It came out in the Daily News. I post a link in the chat for our chat regulars. But yeah, this isn't necessarily a new issue, because a couple years ago we were talking about the response times for 911. And in fact, Brad Holloman Siegel, who is now I think he's now the Manhattan Borough President. Yes, since January. He put out a report in 2024 about congestion and emergency response times. Ironically enough, one of his proposals was to get rid of vehicles, for government to put limits on the amount of vehicles on the street. So ironically, again, their answer to all of this was probably to create more traffic congestion because, again, he also, in that report, he also recommended congestion pricing, and that has actually increased congestion at certain parts of Manhattan. So anyway, this report was released in 2024, and in it he spoke about the increase in response times for 911. I'll go through it as we talk about it, but something I wanted to point out is that, according to EMS, in the case of a cardiac arrest, you know, at at uh, at 4 minutes, clinical death begins, and according to them, at 6 minutes, biological death begins. These are all things I had no idea of, but it's important to keep in mind that if you're gonna get there after 9 minutes, again, like they said in here, your chances of surviving a cardiac arrest are slim to none. So speed and response times are of the utmost importance. But again, as we spoke about it many times before, that the city is kind of short on personnel right now, and that personnel also includes EMS. And you know, John said that the part of what we believe with the encryption was to also obfuscate those response times, and I'm thinking this is one of those examples why the city needed to encrypt those radios so you, the public, don't hear it. But we'll get into all of that as we go around. Morning, Eric.
Good morning, brother. Well, it's incidents like these, I think, that raise serious questions. And those serious questions are: what is the standing NYPD's directive for cops as we speak in regards to incidents just like this? Because even with the best manpower or the best system in place, I do think these things can still happen. Now, I do blame leadership on this. I think that the manpower numbers that have been given by commissioners on all levels has been a complete lie, especially when it comes to the police department. I think they gaslight the public. But I think it's all agencies. And how do we know that? We can look back at the vaccine mandate and how many important, valuable workers we've lost in all different agencies, not just the cops, but all agencies of New York City, which include EMS. We've lost people because of the vaccine mandate. And I believe the city is still feeling those effects, and we've not recovered from that yet. But this raises serious questions for the NYPD because, unfortunately, the burden is always on the cops. And somehow, if we don't protect the cops and we don't get in front of this, and that's where I think the leadership fails in the NYPD also, is if they don't get in front of this, then ultimately the cops will still be blamed for this. So the question is, what is the directive? And will the NYPD have some type of guidelines? If we have two cops on patrol, rhetorically speaking, moving forward, and if they're in a situation just like this, is there going to be a directive where they notify the patrol sergeant? Is there going to be a directive of when do they take action, right? Like what type of incidents? Is it someone with a broken leg? Is it someone in cardiac arrest? Is there going to be specific categories? For instance, someone with an overdose, someone in cardiac arrest, and or different type of categories. And also, the question is, if we do get to that point to have a directive, and I think there should be a directive, there would also have to be some training for cops to actually identify what category someone may be in, because cops are not paramedics. And here's the reality. I think it's a shame. People expect cops to do everything. And the reality is, I would not expect anyone to do everything. For instance, let's say you had someone come to your home to fix something, right? If someone says that they could do the plumbing and they could do the electrical and they can fix the doors and they can do wood and they can do everything, that's not someone you want. Someone that says they can do everything probably can't do anything, or just a little bit of each. You want specialists. And the same thing goes for the NYPD. We can't expect the cops to know every single thing, and that's why we have EMS respond. We can't expect the cops to be able to identify. Their job is to make common sense identifications, which they did. It was common sense that this young man was going to a state of potential death. They saw the immediate danger right there, and they rushed him to the hospital. But what is the exact directive? So, John and Mal, I'm curious what you guys think also. Do you think there should be specific categories of when cops transport someone in a medical condition in the back of their patrol car? Or do you think it should just be a case-by-case basis? Unfortunately, I at this point, to my knowledge, at least when I was working, there's no exact directive. So what do you guys think on this? John, good morning, brother.
Morning. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think that, I definitely think it's a case by case basis. You know what I mean? I don't think I wouldn't give someone in a life and death situation, give them like, oh, you should take them here or wait for EMS here. Like, it's a really traumatic situation. When if you're throwing somebody into the back of your RP and taking them to the hospital, you're in full panic mode at that point. So you're in all life saving mode, if you want to say. So I don't know that like there could really be a directive about it, but I mean if you look at it and look, I'm not look, the cops did a good job. They did what they had to do, and EMS does a great job. And I'm not talking about the people on the ground. I'm talking about the supervision up top on these agencies and the agency heads. And when we're talking about the agency heads here, we're talking about the police commissioner and we're talking about the fire commissioner. Now, FDNY, when we talk about staffing, is more up to speed, much more up to speed than the NYPD and EMSs. And they have the personnel. Now, EMS, they're paid garbage, and we've talked about that over and over again, that they're, Justin Brennan for his entire terms in city council said he was going to get EMS a raise, and they've never gotten one. And, they're out on the streets of New York City just like cops and firefighters are. And so when you're talking about pay parity to me and all that, and I know people like, nah, they shouldn't make what we make. It's like, I don't support that at all. I'm like, I think that if they're responding to the 911 calls and put in the same dangerous situations you guys are put in, then yeah, absolutely. Should they be held to higher standards? Yeah, absolutely. And so what this showed, I believe, in my opinion, is just another breakdown of the 911 system. We watched it the other day, and it really got like brushed over. But when we played the video of the incident in the liquor store with the narcotics detectives, right? They identify the wrong guy. They believe he's the perpetrator. He starts to fight, right? If you remember that video was about 8 minutes long, and the lady's on 911, calling 911 and saying, these cops are over here beating somebody up. Send somebody over here. Send the supervisor. Send this. Send that. Nobody got to that job. Not EMS, not the cops, not patrol, not the patrol sergeant. Nobody got to that job. Those detectives were able to get their unit there through WhatsApp faster than that person was able to call 911 and get somebody to that scene. That required an immediate emergency response from both EMS and the NYPD. And if you look at this chart here, so this is the breakdown as per local law 119, right? And this is the average for the month of March. So it tells you here the average response time to segment one medical emergency as defined by the department, including cardiac arrest and choking incidents by ambulance, which, if you're calling for EMS and you're definitely putting in a second call 20 minutes later, then there's a big problem here. And because what they're telling you is that they handled only 1,918 of those jobs, which, again, I don't believe any of the classifications ever, but they're saying that took them on average about 10 minutes and 23 seconds. Now, if you were properly staffed and you had functioning supervisors and you had supervisors who actually knew the job, in the case of FDNY, the girl was an EMS chief, so she knows the job, right? So it's not like Jessica Tish, who was never a cop. So I told hold her solely accountable. You would think that you would, so if the scenario is perfect and you have the perfect supervisors and you have the perfect amount of people out working that day and your agencies are properly staffed, could something like this happen potentially? Yes, it's possible. If there's another major emergency incident somewhere, maybe there's a major fire somewhere where there's numerous casualties. Yeah, in that case, I could see where things go haywire. But there's nothing that they could lean on here. There's nothing that they could be like, oh, we had a 5-alarm fire. There were 200 injuries, 10 people dead. yeah, of course, like nothing's perfect, nothing's foolproof, nothing's fail-proof. But what they're telling you here by this local law is just not reality. Average response time to life-threatening medical emergencies, 13 minutes and 28 seconds. And they're saying they handled 43,240 of these. Average response time to life-threatening and non-life-threatening emergencies by ambulance units combined, 21 minutes. I mean, this is almost double that. And this is cops screaming in the radio for help. So I get they handle a lot of jobs. I get that. But, the thing here that like everyone's like ignoring, and when I say everyone, I mean the media and these agency heads, what they are ignoring is that these agencies are highly short-staffed and they're running from job to job, and our response times are way up as a result. If you guys remember, I was playing a lot during the Adams administration how bad response times were. And then all of a sudden, every public safety hearing, it was response times, right? Lincoln Ressler was beating the shit out of Jeff Madry, Ed Caban, Keechant Sewell. They were getting their asses kicked on response times, and deservingly so. I'm not saying that they didn't, and because they're sitting there telling you that, no, we're good. We're at the allotted head count. Everything's good. All precincts are properly staffed. We just can't tell you how many people are in the precinct. And all of a sudden, Jessica Tisch came in, and those questions just went away. Like, does anyone believe it was miraculously solved response times? So, I mean, there's a lot here, man, and it shows a breakdown of the overall system. So, and I blame FDNY and I blame the NYPD and I blame solely the leadership of it.
Yeah, that's very interesting how those questions kind of died down when Tish came in. It's also very interesting how the article about the 22-year-old man dying is only through the Daily News right now. Now, I shared an article from EMS.com, but keep in mind that article was on EMS.com. It's just a reposting of what was in the Daily News. So it's not really being talked about in the media, which is very interesting. And it's very interesting considering the amount of control we've referenced that Tish has over the media. Keep in mind, again, that her grandfather was a media mogul, right? So that family has had some influence over the media for a while now. And the uncle, or rather her cousin, is a big Hollywood producer himself, right? So about the job vacancy, right? This was an article in City and State in September of 2025, which talked about it. And the comptroller's office has also spoken about it too, right? There are quite amount of job vacancies in the city right now, and the overall vacancy rate is 5.1%, and that includes. There's a lot when you look at the civilian side, but let's look at the uniform side, right? Let me pull it up. Why isn't it coming up? Yeah, I'll get back to it. It's not coming up. But yeah, this was referenced in September 2025 that not only were we short of personnel, but the Adams administration has spent 2 years deleting certain positions, right, from the budget itself, so that the actual amount of workers that the city is short might be actually skewed, and it might actually be higher, right? But let's see, when it comes to EMS, it's about 3%, which is 500 people. So again, the city is short of personnel, and we don't know the exact reasoning why there was a delayed in response time for that gentleman, but we do know that not only has the congestion in the city increased in the last couple of years, but now on top of that, like John said, we're short of personnel. But if you can put back that chart you had up one more time, John. I thought it was interesting that chart indicated that 911 EMS response times to cardiac arrest was 10 minutes and it was 10 minutes 23 seconds. I think I saw on there, or at least 10 minutes. Again, that's you know, that's pretty bad considering, according to the FDNY themselves. Again, if it takes 9 minutes for you to be for there to be a response, your chances of survival are slim to none. So EMS is they're actually telling us right now that look, you see, if you go 4 spots down, you see average response times to medical emergencies as defined by the department, including cardiac arrest, or 10 minutes and 23 seconds, right? And again, we go back to this. This is FDNY saying it themselves in 2024, that if it takes nine minutes, you're not going to make it there. So that's pretty bad.
So basically, you're saying if you have a cardiac arrest, basically, as per the response times in March, if you're dead, you're not making it if you call 911. That's basically what the time.
Oh, spot on. They're already late.
Yeah. I'm gonna put up another picture of that as we go around again, so you guys could see it if you missed it.
We gotta label that out and put that out there on a tweet. Like, we gotta put all that stuff together.
Absolutely, because it shows even with those numbers, Marlon, despite, and separate from what we're talking about right here, it's just an ultimate failure. Now, to me, here's the sum total. The public assumes 911 is coming right away. That's whether it's police, fire, EMS. It's not the burden on the public to know when the cops are coming, when EMS is coming, or fire. They assume you call 911, they're coming right away. So the response times are never going to be enough. It has to be immediate. However, in a situation like this, when ambulances are stacked up and cops are put in positions where they have to make improvised life and death decisions, the burden is on City Hall and department leadership. And that department is the NYPD and also FDNY. It's on the leadership. And so Rob Lukash, our brother on the Finest Unfiltered, I love you, brother. How you doing? He always talks about, when he was in special operations, how important it is to have an after action review. For instance, if ESU was doing a search warrant or some type of specialized scenario, that there would be an after action review. So, in my opinion, based on this, and I don't know if they have it already, but if they don't, they should. I think that a critical incident just like this, where there is a life or death situation and the police have to make an improvised response, or if there's actually a death in custody, and this is in some ways a death in police custody because the police are there and the police have to make the improvised response, and the EMS failed to respond, this should trigger a joint after action review with the NYPD and FDNY leadership. Now, I don't know if they do that already, but if they don't, they should. And there should be some policy in place that if something like this happens, that it triggers an NYPD, FDNY after action review. It's important to analyze this because even just going by those numbers, it's already a failure. So we can't just say this incident is a failure. We have to find out what failures are in these systems for EMS and the NYPD in correlation with the NYPD and FDNY, and what systems we have together. So there's no blame on the boots on the ground. I think those cops did a great job. They did what they could. They had to make an improvised response. It's exactly what this is, an improvised response. So should it be a case-by-case basis? Absolutely. As being a cop, you don't have a medical background of when to take someone to the hospital. And the reason why I brought up these questions, I think there has to be some type of directive, though. Some type of directive from the NYPD to tell cops, when you're in these situations, who do you notify, what steps to take, and just maybe some small life-saving steps. Of course, cops are protected by the Good Samaritan law, but when you take someone who is in a medical condition and you put them in the back of a car, things can happen also. God forbid someone has, this one happens to be an overdose, but God forbid someone's in a position where they're in a situation where we have to protect their spine and we can't move their neck and head in certain situations, right? Because when EMS comes in, they put people on a gurney, and they do it in a very specific way. So when cops with good intentions put someone in a medical condition in the back of their patrol car, we could be causing more damage than actually helping. And that's why I believe there has to be some directive. So does it have to be, well, you take people to the hospital for this, or take people? No. But there has to be some training, some small form of training. Maybe Amazing Ann can jump in on this, right? She has a lot of training with that. But there has to be some type of training when you put someone in the back of the car, so we're not doing more harm than good. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, look, there's some scenarios that you just can't help. You know, I got called one time when I was a sergeant. I get called to a job, and it was a undocumented worker, right? And he was on the third floor of this building, and it wasn't even a building; it was just a big house in Brooklyn. And he was doing some work. He wasn't harnessed in like he should have been. He was on the outside of the house. He fell backwards 3 stories down, cracked his head. Right, so. Well, our response time there was like, I'm not kidding. It was like probably like 3-4 minutes, you know, and EMS was already walking up the alleyway that he was in. And there's no way that we could have transported him if EMS wasn't there. You know, he just cracked his head open. He split the back of his head open. He's convulsing on the ground. It's not feasible to think in any way, shape, or form that the police could put that person in the ambulance. Now, thankfully, EMS was there. If they weren't there, I mean, we would have just watched him literally die on the floor. He did wind up dying. It was one of, you know, and like, look, there's a lot of stories, right? Like when we work with all these different agencies and all these different personalities, there are bad things that happen, and there are assholes everywhere. You know, so there are assholes that are cops, there are asshole EMS workers, and there are asshole firefighters. Like, let's not beat around the bush with it. Like that one scenario, you know, that was a pretty bad scenario. So I hate to even bring it up. And it was bad because when I was walking up with my driver, the EMS guy didn't know I was walking up behind him, and he said, he's not going to make it. Let's just leave him. And I snapped. I said, you better put him on that stretcher right now, or I'm going to be fucking locking you up. And he was like, ooh. And they ran and they got him. They took him in the ambulance. They got him out of that. Now, he did get pronounced at Mamdani's later on. And at Mamdani's later on, I seen the EMS worker, and he's like, yeah, see, I knew he wasn't going to make it. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I'm like, what if that was your father or your mother or your wife, and you think you're going to play God? I'm like, your job is to get sick people to the hospital, not to fucking make calls about when they're going to die. You fucking try. You know, I was like, I'm like, if he would have died on that scene, I would be fucking locking you up. And I left. Now, is that a representation of EMS? Absolutely not. I've went to hundreds of jobs with EMS and a lot of great people. And again, if they were paid properly, if they were staffed properly, if they were held to high standards, I think that alleviates a lot of the nonsense. But in that scenario, like I said, I just think to that scenario because that's just one of the many scenarios that I got into that there's absolutely no way we could have helped that individual. Like we would have done more damage should he had an ability to survive. I mean, everyone should be given the chance to survive. But if we would have moved him, like Eric said, you know, car accidents, you're worried about really doing more damage, right? Picking him up, putting him in the back of a little RMP where maybe there's a cage in there, maybe there isn't. This isn't a way to transport someone that's injured. Absolutely not. I mean, you could wind up doing more damage to them. You know, so I think it should really be used as a last resort in a case-by-case basis, and I don't think it's something that people should partake in often. I get it. You don't want to see anybody die. You know, and if feel like, well, they're going to go if we don't get them there, then I guess that's the time frame. Like death is imminent if you don't do it. I mean, I guess that would be the time frame. And for those of you curious about it, if you look at what's going on with, sorry, where am I? if you're curious about what's going on with EMS, I suggest you go over to X and you watch this account. It's called New York City EMS Watch, and he calls FDNY the Ministry of Truth. Where have you heard that before, right? That's what we talk about the NYPD, right? Here on the Finest Unfiltered, we're always saying, we call them the propaganda department, and he sometimes the Ministry of Truth, and so what he points out daily is, and so that in this scenario, and I'll zoom in on it, it shows the fleet roster. It shows the target for each day. NYPD police are not on here, and that's for sensitivity reasons, right? But it shows the target, that's each day, and the actual in service, right? So for ambulances, they have 627 ambulances in New York City. The target daily in service is 332. It used to not be that target. The target used to be like much higher than that, almost close to the whole and allotted. It used to so nearly half of the ambulances sit unused. They have a target of only putting out half of their ambulances. Does that make sense to anybody? Because it certainly doesn't to anyone I know in EMS. It doesn't make sense to me as just a rational person with common sense. You would think you would have some of these trucks on standby 100% for mechanical purposes and things like that, but definitely not half. That's like telling you that half of the RMPs in the NYPD sit unused each day, which, I hate to break it to you, but that's kind of what's happening. And so for that actual day, they put out 435 over, and so that they show that they're up. But the reality is their target used to be much higher. And when this guy started this account and started calling them out about how low their target was, about how high their target was and how they never were meeting their target, what they did is lower their target. And then also when he started talking about the amount of ambulances that they had, they lowered the amount of ambulances. So, they start playing games with that. So it's all like a numbers game. And for this particular post, and you could see it here, I'll bring it in. Like if you see right there, FDNY ambulances, 627. Their target's only 332. But that day they put out 435. So what he said for that day was FDNY didn't like that I reported a lot of ambulances are not in service. So what does FDNY do? They changed the target number of ambulances from 488 to 332 and shed the fleet roster down by 627 ambulances. So it means that the FDNY now has 295 spare ambulances. So listen to what he's showing you. He's showing you the clear number manipulation. The amount of ambulances New York City did have was a lot more than that, and their target was much higher. It was 488. And so they lowered it down to show you that. So it shows, and the reason I brought that up is it just shows that you're not being told the truth in New York City by any agency, especially the FDNY and the NYPD. They're not telling you the actual crime numbers. They're not telling you their personal Nell numbers. They're not telling you their actual fleet numbers, what they're turning out each day, and they're certainly not telling you their response times. So it's something that I don't know when it's going to come to a head, like what is happening in DC, and we'll get to that in a little bit with the crime stat manipulation. But this is not just akin to New York. This is commonplace. This is the culture in public safety across all blue Democratic big cities. This is the culture of lying to the public and offering the public a much more diminished service than they had just 6 years ago.
Yeah. A couple more housekeeping about this. So this goes back to that report again in 2024, right? And if you look at the FDNY medical emergencies, right, response times in 2024 were 6 minutes and 14 seconds. Now, I don't know if you have that chart again, John, but I recall seeing 10 minutes on there. So that would mean that those response times are actually up again. And I believe they actually went down a little bit in 2025. But if they're up now to 10 minutes and change, that would mean that they've gone back up again. And again, as we pointed out last time, the longer it takes the ambulance to respond is the greater likelihood of brain damage as time goes on. And again, this is another chart. This is from Pro CPR, which is it's a training. It's a CPR training, CPR and EMS training guide that's connected to those industries. And here they tell you themselves at 10 minutes and change, brain death is likely. And again, the chart that John just put up told you that their response times right now are in the 10 minutes. So they're telling you that if you have a cardiac arrest in the city, you probably it's not gonna be looking good for you. Again. So
I want to respond to this comment. It comes from a good friend to the podcast, a brother who's always hitting us up with coffee and donuts. So I want to respond to this. Modern Samran, how you doing, brother? He says, Eric, stop playing lawyer. If it was a baby, you would run them to the hospital. Please stop. Our job is to protect people. Of course, I've actually rushed babies to the hospital myself. There's no doubt about it. Do we want to save people? That's why we became cops. Yes. But sometimes protecting people, my point to this is protecting people is by knowing when to take action and when not to. And I mean physically taking action, because let's be honest, the back of a patrol car is not the back of EMS. It's not the same setup. It's a different environment. And sometimes it takes extreme discipline of knowing when to put someone in your car and when not to. Of course, if there was a baby, and it happened to me before, I'm a father myself, right? If I'm at a job and a baby's not crying and I see the color change, that's a problem, right? Babies are supposed to cry. And the reason why I gave that scenario, it happened one time. I was on a job and I had a baby and the baby was unresponsive and I couldn't get the baby to cry. So an EMS wasn't there yet. So of course I went in the back, I was holding the baby and I had one of my partners drive and we flew to the hospital. But that's a scenario where I could hold the baby but again, we're putting an adult in the back of a police car. It's not the same environment as for EMS. I mean, are there going to be some times we put people in the back of a patrol car? Yes. I even heard, and this is really hard to understand and hard to believe, and I'm not saying I could do it but I've heard, and I've been to different trainings where they say, hey, a cop has a better chance of surviving if EMS responds and puts the cop, God forbid, shot in EMS than a cop being transported in the back of a patrol vehicle. But what happens every time a cop is shot? The cop is transported in the back of a patrol car. Almost every time if a cop is shot, gets transported in the back of a patrol car. Why? Because we all want to protect. We all want to help. And the reality, is that the best way to transport someone to the hospital that was shot? Probably not. We do it because we love that person and care. But when I've been to different training modules where they actually instructed that it's actually better to wait for EMS to put that cop in the car because they have a direct line with the surgeons at the hospital and everything's getting prepared and set up. And no matter how many times I was told that, or any of us may have been told that, if you guys heard that also, we're still going to put a cop in the back of a patrol car because we care and we want to help. So it takes extreme amount of discipline. So there has to be some type of directive. It's not about being a lawyer. It's about actually wanting to help people and put people in the back of a car when it's the right time. We can't just put everyone in the back of a car. That would also be reckless. Babies, of course. But there has to be some type of directive and understanding just to have some correlation. But even with that type of training, would I put, God forbid, if I was in a situation where a cop was shot, of course I'm going to put him back in a patrol car, but that not be the right decision. That might be a great decision of the heart, but it actually might not be the best decision. So that's really the conversation. We have to have a mature adult conversation about this.
Yeah. If I can touch on that, I didn't actually know about that, about the city's EMS actual vehicle issue, but those two, what Eric's talking about and that vehicle issue, actually, I think are entwined. And I'll tell you why. Because nationwide, there's a shortage of actual EMS of the physical vehicles themselves, and there have also been production problems with that. Regarding there have been production shortages on the chassis for the vehicle themselves. And apparently the manufacturers, they've prioritized the high margin consumer in consumer truck industry, as opposed to the ambulance specialized vehicles, because the specialized vehicles take longer, and they don't get those orders in the volume they need to be profitable. So right now the entire country has been experiencing a physical shortage of the ambulance themselves, and this issue has gotten all the way up to Congress, right? So the reason why it's entwined with what Eric's talking about is because I can see a future where cops may have to transport more people to the hospital in the RMP themselves, you know. And not only is the shortage of EMS workers themselves an issue, but again, this is a nationwide problem, and it's a nationwide supply chain problem. And problems with supply chains, are exacerbated by what's happening in the globe, because a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of parts for vehicles actually come from China. Now, they may be the smaller parts, like including widgets and the smaller parts of the vehicle, right? But they do come from China. And with what's happening now with the globe, and with America seeming to go its way, and China going its own way, is the production, the supply chain is going to need to be reconfigured so that all those parts that we would outsource to China are made in America. And that's going to take a while, because we don't make anything in this country. So what I'm saying is that this issue with the shortage of physical ambulances is actually going to, it's more than likely going to increase, which means that cops are going to have to, it's going to have to be in their hands in order to get that person to the hospital, because again, the longer you're waiting is the greater likelihood that that person's going to have brain damage or bleed out. So this is a concern that's going to come up again, I think.
Well, that's not the issue in New York City, though, at all. That's an issue for small town mom and pop, ambulance services, where they're ordering one or two. I mean, clearly we documented what the issue is here. The issue is that they don't have EMS workers, New York. I mean, they have a surplus. They have double the amount of ambulances they're putting out on the street. And they have actually a lot more than that too, but they can't put the bodies in there to fill those ambulances. So I do think that cops are gonna be put in the situation to have to transport more people to the hospital. But it's in New York City, it's not gonna be because of lack of ambulances.
Well,
it's gonna be a lack of EMS workers.
Well, I think that's why they may be holding those vehicles there too. So that's what I'm
No, because there should be a lot more out on the street, and traditionally there were a lot more out on the street. And again, they dumb down what they're saying that they have in service. Actual like they moved that number down almost in half. Two of them. Two numbers, they halved it. They're like, oh no, we'll just take that out. We'll take our target down. We'll take the number of ambulances out. We'll just put this one out of service, and then we won't count that as a ambulance in service. How many ambulances are out of service? Oh, we don't know. We don't know. Just that number went out the window. Like if look, New York is the mecca of every contract, dude. If they needed fire trucks, or if they needed EMS trucks, or they needed any type of specialty equipment, I could get them that order. We could all get them the order. That's the constant. That is the holy grail of the public safety grift, is getting the contracts with the NYPD, FDNY, and all that. And we see, certain people attempting to do that from all over, right? Everyone's looking to do that, right? Everyone's looking to influence peddle to get contracts with these agencies, because that's where you're going to make the most money. That's where your product's going to get the most bang for its buck, and that's where everyone's going to see it. But the thing is, like, we're talking a lot about, like, oh, the NYPD's innocent here. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, the NYPD is not innocent. They might be innocent on this job specifically. I still say the 27-minute response time for a heavy breather is ridiculous. Disorderly mail, ridiculous. Erratic mail, I got to wait a half hour in New York City. I got to wait a half hour in a precinct that's 2 square miles. And how many guys you got working? Where are they? How many guys are on the payroll at that precinct in that time? How many people are employed in the city of New York at that time on the payroll? Why is someone taking 27 minutes when a New Yorker calls 911? I don't give a shit what it is. Why is it taking you 20 seconds? Unless it was like a crime in the past where it's a report, I get it. But the thing is, like, I'm friends with a lot of firemen, past, present, and from all up the food chain, from all the way to the tippy top, all the way down to the bottom, right? And I talk to them often, and today they leave a lot of jobs. Like, first of all, they go to a lot of EDP jobs, and cops don't come. Same shit for EMS, cops don't come, so they're being left out there. And even though they're calling for units, they're not getting units either. So this is a problem that's happening everywhere. And then even FDNY, when they go to fires or they go to car accidents, I'm hearing sometimes they're waiting 45 minutes to an hour and they just leave the car there. They're like, we can't wait anymore. Like, we got other jobs to do. I can't sit here and wait for the NYPD to get here. So it really solely, when we talk about New York City, it's 100% a supervision and staffing issue. And the major issue with the supervision is that the people in charge of these agencies are blatantly lying to the public. Blatant liars. It's right in your face. And they're like, no, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe don't believe any of what you're hearing on social media. Social media is lying to you. You're safe. This is the best version New York City ever had. As a matter of fact, we're at historic crime lows. I know all these crimes. I know you're seeing little babies shot, and I know you're seeing cops getting shot at, and you see people get shoved on the trains every day. But no. We're actually at historic lows in crime in New York City. And everyone's like, really? I feel like we've devolved so much since that 2018 period. And the reason is that you feel like that is because that's exactly what happened. Crime is much higher than it was in 2018. And the fact of the matter is the only thing that's down is the accounted for crime. Because I won't even call it the reported crime anymore, because a lot of times the complainants are actually reporting it, but what's being documented is completely different from what the complainant's being reported. And the same is happening in the whole sphere of public safety. Again, it's not just New York City. It is every Democratic run police department and fire department across the country. They have all the same issues. They have staffing issues. They have a crisis of supervision. They have a ton of people who don't belong in these positions, either DEI hires or political patronage hires, that have no business in the positions that they're in. And we're literally just lying to the public as we're watching these agencies decay, and we're watching response times decay, and we're watching the amount of manpower decay, and all of the quality of life decaying, and the quality of the services that you are paying for as a New York City taxpayer, or a taxpayer wherever you are, whether it's in Washington, D.C., Chicago, L.A., you're paying for a diminished product, a product that is totally different than the product that you had in 2018. And you're being told, don't ask any questions about it.
Yeah, that's very true, very true. And let's go back to the city and state article from 2025. Look at the chart, guys. You see, so the red is total expenditures, and the black is full-time employees. What do you see there? You see a dip in full-time employees, but yet the expenditures are going through the roof. You see? So this is what you're paying for in blue cities, okay? You're paying higher costs for diminished services. And I've said it before. I think the whole progressive BS, right, is a cover for austerity measures. Okay? It's a way to put an empathical. It's a way to emotionally manipulate you into accepting it, okay? Because we're appealing to your empathy, and when I see charts like this, I think this is what's happening in real time. Okay, yeah, the costs are going up, but we have less EMS workers, we have less FDNY firefighters, we have less cops. And I won't even get into the civilian portion of it, because those city civilian administrative services in the city they have even more massive cuts, right? But you're seeing it here in real time. And the real question we should all ask is why, what is to account for all these increased costs? You know, is it part of the graft and corruption and malfeasance that are in blue cities, which I tend to agree it is. But I think either way, it's very interesting that this continues to happen.
Well, so if we're talking about blue cities. New York City is the 911 infrastructure is massive, right? It's the largest 911 EMS FDNY police system in the entire country. It has the most amount of funding when it comes to the 911 system for the NYPD, EMS, and FDNY in comparison to any other city. Now, as busy as it is, still has the most amount of resources, the most amount of funding. So this, to me, completely falls on the leadership. There's a failure on the leadership in all these agencies. And as I said earlier, I do believe the only way moving forward is to have to have after action reviews. This should now trigger a response, and there should be some type of interagency response amongst the NYPD and FDNY with EMS as far as these critical situations on how to respond. Yes. Do we want to protect life? Yes. But it should not become common practice. And it looks like it may be common practice where if we don't have the manpower, and it doesn't matter, we can have 8 million vehicles, but unless we have the manpower, those vehicles are going to be sitting empty. Someone has to drive those vehicles. Maybe we will get to a point where those vehicles will be robotically driven. I mean, I think the whole world is moving to that at some point with artificial intelligence and robotics. But right now, we need bodies, we need human beings to actually drive those vehicles. So we can have thousands of vehicles, we have millions of vehicles, but unless we actually have the manpower. So I blame this solely on leadership. And the leadership on all these agencies have to correlate to each other. And even if the NYPD is not perceived as the actual failure on this, if the NYPD leadership doesn't get in front of this, well, that's a problem also, because silence is complicit also in failure. There's a failure in the system. There's a breakdown. We can't expect the cops to improvise on every scene and to start putting people in the back of patrol cars. The back of a patrol car is not an ambulance. It's not equipped. Yes, we want to protect people. We want to help people. But sometimes real discipline is knowing when to put your hands on something, but it's also knowing when not to. And I think that's what takes true discipline. And when we put people in the back of a patrol car, it's caring, but it's emotionally driven. And as I said, of course, there are situations you have a baby who's unresponsive. You do what it takes. But certain times you just don't want to touch people and put them in certain situations because you could cause more damage. So there has to be a directive from the leadership of the NYPD. And if there's not, that's an extreme failure. And it has to be a directive on how people, if they are going to be transported in the back of a car, maybe there should be some life-saving tips on how to put someone in the back of a patrol car. Because clearly the back of a patrol car is not ideal for the average human being to go in the back of a patrol car. You put an average man who can't even lay down in the back of a patrol car, and it's designed for people to sit. So there should be something. We could say, hey, maybe there should be some equipment. We know how the NYPD, when it comes to equipment, that's always a failure. Any equipment that I've ever needed on patrol, or I'm sure John and Marlon, you could agree, we never have it. We never have that equipment. I mean, they've had good ideals. The police department say, hey, every car is going to have this, and eventually, somewhere in the system, the ball gets dropped. The patrol cars never have this equipment, especially in an evolving police department where that patrol car is used 24 hours a day by different units, constantly different patrol units. Things get lost. It's not a good accountability system. It's not like some small cities or small towns where they take the patrol car home. That's more ideal, where they can actually account for what equipment's in that car. But I really think there has to be something put in place and some type of training, if we are going to transport people in the car, to how we are going to do it. Obviously, a baby, that's different. You can just hold them. But how are we going to put a grown man or a grown woman in the back of a car? I mean, is there any directive? I've never even, God forbid if a woman is giving birth, right? If you could help give birth right on the scene, yes. But if not, if you could transport that woman to the hospital, how do you transport that woman to the hospital? How do we actually make sure she's okay? How do you lay her down? I mean, do we have towels? Do we have things like that? No. So there has to be some type of directive. And to my knowledge, there is none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Even Mike Freed weighs in here. He says, recently we had to take my mom to the hospital with the EMS. We were told we couldn't pick what hospital to go to anymore. The EMT said it's because of times going out of the area means that ambulance is down. Yeah, I hope your mom's feeling better. But again, like that's exactly what we're saying here is you're getting a diminished service. Look, here's the bottom line in New York City. You're your own cop. You're your own firefighter. You're your own EMT. Like you have to have a plan. I'm not saying not to call 911. Definitely call 911, but you know, you don't know how long that's taken. You just don't. I mean, and we see it over and over again, you know, and there's never any rationale into it. It's always we're going to investigate. And it's the same thing here. Oh, we're going to investigate what happened here. And ultimately, what is the investigation going to show? The investigation is going to show that they needed more people in on those ambulances that day. They needed more cops on the street that day. And, you know, and are they going to do anything and solve that? Are they going to blame themselves? No. So you're never going to hear anything about it. You know, so I really got nothing else with this topic. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have anything else you want to talk about with this. I think it is what it is.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I always say I'm a firm believer you are your best doctor, right? Like there's no better doctor than you. I always, you know, you need a doctor for prescriptions, but you really don't need a doctor to tell you something's wrong, right? I know my body. I know when I'm not feeling well. I know if it's just something I could shake off in a day, or I know if there's something serious, right? Like when I had a kidney stone, I knew like, man, I got a problem. Like most things you could shake off. So I think that's a good point, John. I just want to reiterate that. I think that's a good point. Like you can't really rely on the 911 completely. You know when there's something's an emergency and you can take care of it yourself, or it's just out of your head. So I think that's a good point. Just wanted to jump on that, and I agree.
Yeah, you know, there's some limits to that, though. You know, because keep in mind the infrastructure in New York City they've changed the infrastructure to create more congestion. You know. So even if you had to take a relative to the hospital, that's going to take a little bit longer than it used to before. And again, just to quickly reference that
and
report,
you may get a speed camera ticket on your way to the hospital. You know,
just take your plate off. Don't worry, everybody else does it. Nobody else has plates.
J.K. Trotter might have a problem with that. You rushed God forbid you rushed mom to the hospital, but you got a ticket on the way because you did 26 miles an hour.
Or just get yourself like a super speeder bike, and then you could just fly with unregistered. You could just fly through everything.
Does that come with a little flag on the back of the bike? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. You could ask Gersh Kunstman what's the best helmet.
Well, you'll also get a super speeder speed limit on your vehicle after that trip to the hospital too.
You think JK sits on the bike with the seat or without the seat? Just curious.
But the chart that we're looking at right now is the percentage of increased travel time from 2014. This is again in 2024. So and keep in mind that the Vision Zero initiative started in 2014 with de Blasio, and you know, this is in 2024. Okay, the most congested city on the planet. So again, the irony of this report is that Holloman Siegel recommended congestion pricing, and that's only made things worse in Manhattan. So what I think is actually going to happen here is if you hear about this 22-year-old dying, it's actually going to be used by the whack jobs in the state and in our city council to further restrict your vehicles and to further create congestion in the city by getting rid of traffic lanes and adding stupid bike paths. And by the way, even FDNY has complained about that because a lot of the changes DOT has made restricts the fire truck from making turns or from going down certain streets. So it's a big problem. And this is something that we all got to keep an eye out on and see just how far out the problem is going to take us. Is there going to be a delayed fire response because of it? You know, are there going to be other deaths because of it? I think I kind of tend to think that there will be. And I'm wondering also if the city is going to not talk about it and try to divert our attention away, because something has obviously happened if the Post and the other papers are not talking about this incident. So
the Post picked it up last night.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, I just want to end this topic on this before we get to the next topic. But I think, hey, Mike Marino, what's up, brother? I think Mike makes a good comment here. You got to kind of ask why. This is a really good point. So, Mike, how you doing, brother? Mike says, PC Kelly had lots of focus groups and Harvard studies, millions of dollars, no results. I think that's a great point. Like, why did that happen? There were a lot of studies. You're absolutely right. A lot of money spent and went nowhere. But why? So there's no follow through. Is it just for show? I think that's a good point, right? I think focus groups are good, if you're trying to help out. But I think that's a great point. Why they never went anywhere? It raised a lot of questions. Good point. So good morning, brother.
Yeah, and Joanne Ariola actually has a bill right now, and I hope it passes, but I don't think it will. It's a common sense. It shouldn't be a partisan issue, but I guess when we talk about bike lanes now, we know, or anything with the anti-car agenda, we know that is now a political partisan issue, right? We know that the lefties, I like to call them the bike communists, the bicycle communists. They so what her bill is saying is that FDNY has to sign off on any bike lane, because I could show you numerous videos where these bike lanes are newly installed. They put a bike lane in a particular firehouse's area, and there's no coordination with FDNY. They don't ask them anything. And so what they're doing is they put these barriers or these potted plants to like as a barrier for that bike lane on the corner. And then the FDNY truck can't make the turn. So what FDNY has to do is, in the middle of rushing to an emergency, they have to get out of their vehicle and push this few 100-pound potted plant out of the way, and then they're able to make the turn. And in some places, depending on the route they take, they may have to do that several times. And it really shows that there's just no coordination, and it's just like, no, this is the way we're going. We don't care what it does. But I 100% agree. All of the stuff that they're doing to alleviate congestion is actually the exact opposite, and it's pushing in congestion. It's making the streets of New York City more congested, which also, on top of now diminished EMS workers and diminished police officers, when we talk about resources, when we talk about that, this is also adding to your response time. So now not only is your response time up because there's not enough cops or there's not enough EMS patrolling on the streets that day, but now when they are actually en route to you, your response times are up because of the politics of New York City and the things that they put in place. So that's why, politics is really controlling all of this. And this is why we've been talking so much about it. And we'll get into that. Mo, anything else? I saw you just brought anything else on this? I saw you just brought something up about it.
No, I was just bringing up the bill again, requiring DOT to consult with FDNY. And to Lily, I saw your comment, Lily. It's been a recent, not just then, but recently. It's a big issue. There are videos, like John referenced, of EMS of FDNY having problems driving the fire truck down blocks because they've been obstructed with these new slimmer lanes, and even those giant potted plants that they've thrown in the streets now. So this is an ongoing issue. And one quick thing, we'll get to Super Speeders Act, but just think how much that's going to make things even worse. If we're going to get to now a city where you're going to have these devices on vehicles that slow down the vehicle, what happens when a EMS or FDNY or NYPD vehicle is trying to get through a lane and this vehicle cannot get out of the way? So it's something to think about, and I just don't think our politicians are looking that far down the road. But we'll get to the Super Speeders Act.
I just want to say I saw that with the onset of the city bikes. When they first came out with city bikes, they started to put these obtuse structures for the city bikes. They would take up so much room, and they took up the shoulders and they took up emergency lanes that we used to use. And I foresaw this being a problem. I definitely foreshadowed and said this is going to be a problem in years to come. So there's no doubt about it. What we see is that these bike lanes, and John, talking about those plants, you're absolutely right. they've been pushed so far into the street that they've become so obtuse that they've actually made these streets more dense. And these vehicles, the EMS vehicles, they're almost like box trucks, right? And they just can't navigate through these streets anymore. And the fire trucks, they can't navigate the same manner. And that to me, especially in places like Manhattan, which is even more important, right? And for every time there's congestion, these streets are densely maneuvered, it slows down and creates a gridlock chain throughout the entire city, especially in that borough, especially in Manhattan. It creates a gridlock throughout the entire borough. And I know because I worked in Manhattan, right? And and if you're on the Lower East Side and there's a traffic condition, on 42nd Street, they're feeling that same traffic condition because it's a chain link reaction. So, especially in Manhattan, we're having major issues. And these bike lanes, I think, have not alleviated congestion, actually furthered and exacerbated that situation and just made this even more difficult. And these vehicles can't even navigate anymore. I wouldn't be surprised eventually if we see these lefties trying to push other ideas of how the fire department will respond besides a big fire truck. I'm sure eventually they'll say there's too much combustion from these trucks and try to push some type of smaller vehicle. And is that rhetorically speaking? Yes. But could that happen? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Hopefully that legislation passes. I don't see it though, because I think the bike lobby and the anti-car lobby is so strong that I think that legislation is going to have a hard time. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. We'll let you know about that. But when we talk about manipulation, we consistently, we've done show after show about showing you clearly how crime stats are being manipulated in New York City. Clear as day. It's not like a huge reach. And I've had several prominent media personalities come back at me about this, question me on it. And when I give them my breakdown of why I'm saying this, they immediately back off and they never come back around. And then they either block me or whatever else, because the bottom line is right in your face. If you knew what you were talking about instead of pushing talking points, then, you could have a conversation, but just want to jump out in front of the politicians, like what we saw during the Adams administration. And during the Adams administration, if you didn't like bike lanes, the way to get them to removed is you had to pay $60,000 to his first deputy mayor, cash, on Monk bills. And we saw what happened with that, right? So that's how you got the bike. But that bike lane's back now. The guy paid $60,000, got indicted, and now the bike lane's back. They put the bike lane in, paid $60,000. City came in, removed it. Now he got indicted. The first deputy mayor got indicted, and now the bike lane's back. So that was the only real, laws don't matter, votes, public opinion, what the community wants, what FDNY thinks is safety or the cops think is safety. None of that matters. It's this and the lobby. It's the lobbyists on one side or your backdoor deals with the other side. So this is the head of the DC Police Union. They call him something else there. I think they call him like the chairman. I think he's called chairman. I don't think he's called like the president. And he's talking about recently there were 13 senior members of the Washington, D.C. Police Department who are being removed and are who are removed of their duties and now are in the process of being terminated for crime stat manipulation. I listened to this and I was like, I don't know if this dude watches the show because he uses the language. It's like eerie, but doing this and getting out here, what I've noticed is there's so much commonality in all of these blue city states that when you talk to the cops or the firemen in these states, it's almost like word for word the same thing that's happening. So when I run into someone who's like mimicking the words that we use on this podcast or the things that we see on this podcast, sometimes I'm like, does he watch the podcast? But then I'm like, nah, I don't think he does. I just think that this is just such in everybody's face that these are the forces that we're all dealing with. And there are going to be people across the country that are going to be brave enough to actually point it out because it just actually is the truth. That's why. It's not because he's grabbing a talking point. He's not like, a certain other podcast that listens to this show, formulates their talking point off it, and then goes live. Like, it's not like that, or, retired chiefs who watch this show and then they go on the media and they push all their talking points out. This, in my opinion, is a guy who's being faced with lies and he's pushing back with the truth. Listen to what he says. It's eerie, man. It's so eerie. It's not even funny.
What's most likely to have occurred is that it became part of the culture within the command staff, which was the goal there was to try to make sure that we were reporting declines in crime stats. Now, whether or not that came from a specific person and they said, yes, you have to go out and do this, or whether it just became culture within the command staff, I don't know. My suspicion is that there were people at the very top that knew what they were doing and were directing subordinates below them to make sure that those crime stats came out every month lower and lower and lower. This crime stat manipulation, as ubiquitous and widespread as it was, it's corruption within the police department, and it needs to be rooted out, and anyone who is responsible needs to be held accountable. And most importantly, moving forward, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. The worst part about it is that there is no justice for victims, for people who were the victim of a robbery or a carjacking or any other violent crime. If the police department went out and took a report for something less than that, or even didn't take a report at all, no one went looking for the person that perpetrated that crime. That person was never arrested. They were never brought to court. They were never held accountable. They just went on to commit however many crimes they went. And the person who was the victim of that crime never sees justice and never even has the opportunity to see justice. And the police department never even went out and tried to pursue justice. That's the worst part about it. But less than that, although still important, is that without approaching crime honestly, you can't direct your resources as whether you're the executive in the mayor's office or you provide oversight as the city council. You cannot direct the proper amount of resources to that agency to address crime if you're not properly reporting it or honestly reporting it. So we've been here for 6 years now. We've been short 800 police officers. And we've been told repeatedly, well, crime is down. Well, crime is down. You don't need to fix that gap. But crime has not been down. Not at all. And these 35 and 40% drops in crime categories that they've been reporting, we're now learning have been a lie.
So eerie, dude. It was like Washington, D.C. Unfiltered, bro. I couldn't even believe it when I listened. I was like, wow. I was like, I've said all this stuff dozens and dozens of times, and you could have literally closed your eyes and just changed it to the NYPD and everything in New York City. And that is exactly, in my opinion, what is occurring. It's not even in my opinion. That is what is occurring.
Yeah. It's airy in a lot of ways. You know, I saw this other article about it, where the current chief, acting chief, Jeffrey Carroll, talks about how the manipulation of crime stats affects their deployment. And a lot of the things he said in that are things that John has said in the past. Okay. Like he says, we use crime statistics every day to help us with deployment across the city. I do not have confidence in those numbers. Yeah, and what he's alluding to is if your deployment is based upon the crime stats, and those crime stats are manipulated, and in this case they were manipulated. This is a quote from a sergeant who had a lawsuit regarding that crime stat manipulation. That lawsuit was settled out of court in 2025, I believe. But she again repeats lines that are very reminiscent of what happens in the NYPD, right? She says that management didn't want certain crimes reported, no felonies. It was downgraded as simple assault, and some misdemeanors when it was definitely presented as a felony. So again, if your numbers are manipulated down because management doesn't want those figures reported, then how do you properly and efficiently deploy manpower to those areas where you actually need manpower and again to keep a taper on crime? You can't do it effectively, so there are a lot of airy similarities to what's happened in the past in NYPD and what we believe is going on now. And keep in mind now that NYPD is short of personnel, right? So I think I kind of think that the fact that we believe they're downgrading certain crimes, and keep in mind also the incident with the Captain Highland of the transit, where he got jammed up for a few because he was reportedly downgrading crimes in transit, right? So So we believe it's happening, and there's enough smoke there to tell you that it's on a wider scale than even we've reported on. Okay, but if the job is doing that, how can they possibly deploy manpower correctly? And you can see why they wouldn't want to report crime properly, because then they would have to find the manpower to allocate to that, and they don't have the manpower. Okay, so you can kind of see how those two things kind of, go hand in hand.
Well, listen, there's no doubt about it. Every police department, every city, every small town wants to say that there is a reduction in crime, right? That's the ultimate goal. So at the same time with that, I want to say that this is not something new. I'm not going to excuse and say that, oh, this is brand new. This has been happening. This culture of suppressing crime and the goal of giving reduction in crime numbers. This happened when we were on the job also, but it's gotten to a point, I believe, on a national level, that there's such a hard push for a reduction in crime while having an anti-police agenda to say, hey, we have all these blue cities have something in common. The theme is anti-police. The theme is defund the police. And so they want to push this agenda, in my opinion, that we could defund the police and still have a reduction in crime. And what happens is we've gotten to a point now where they have to completely lie and manipulate it. I do believe the culture was going on for a long time. I just think it's at the point where it's imploding. Because there's no doubt about it, when we were on the job, that they were suppressing crime also, especially for the NYPD, right? If any commander right now denies what we're saying, well, then you live in a complete lie. There's a whole culture, right? The idea of CompStat is, well, hey, make sure you have proper deployment out there, right? And they tell the commanders to make sure that you're aware of the 7 major crimes, right? So basically what they're doing is they're telling you to monitor them. And anytime you monitor a specific crime, there's going to be manipulation tactics. But it's gotten to a point where they're actually lying about it and actually downgrading it, giving a complete misrepresentation of crime. And when you have a misrepresentation of crime, you have a misrepresentation and improper deployment. And it affects the entire police department. I saw it myself in numerous commands where commanders directed their patrol staff that every time there was a 7 major crime, that commander had to receive a text that there was a robbery or there was a felony assault. And what does that do? That actually suppresses crime, right? That puts cops in a precarious position and frontline supervisors to downgrade crimes so that they don't have to notify their commanders that there was an actual 7 major crime. But now it's gotten to a point where the entire leadership has actually misrepresented crimes. They're not documenting, which also intertwines what we've been talking about, the encrypted radios, which all falls into the reduction of crime by gaslighting people. So we've got to a point of we had tactics to try to monitor crime, but now they're actually going out and lying about crime and downgrading it. And it's starting to catch up and it's imploding. And I think all this lying, what happens is once eventually for a city like DC, or eventually if it comes to New York City, the NYPD, if they start to go back and order everything, it's going to unravel and really destroy a lot of the cases that are happening. Because for every time, if there's a shooting, which we often talk about it right now, especially with the shot spotter, and those shots are fired, and even if no one's hit, if it's not documented properly, well, then we're not getting an actual picture of what's happening, right? So every time there's a trigger pull and we don't document that trigger, we're not getting a full picture of what's happening. And without a clear picture, we can't actually have proper deployment and do proper investigations. So the more they suppress crime and lie about it, it actually makes it worse. So as I remember, John and Marlon, we were saying when Zohran Mamdani gets into office, and if he actually wants to tell the truth, the crime will spike. We'll see a huge increase. But we're seeing has followed the same template. And along with the NYPD leadership, when we speak about New York City, of lying and manipulating the stats that are continuing on right now. So it's just to continue lie. It's not authentic. If we actually tail back and gave an authentic description of what's happening, well, then crime would be out of control. And this would lead to far more investigations. And with the manpower they have, it couldn't be done.
No, yeah. And that's why when that was part of, like, when I was considering it, that was part of my platform, is like, I was like, crime's going to go up under me. Crime's going to go up under me because I'm not going to put cops in bad situations to lie, and New Yorkers are going to know about what crime's actually happening, and there's going to be a huge investigation into the crime statistics because that is it part of the culture. So I'm going to say, in my career, on my opinion, absolutely, crime stat manipulation is part of the culture, but never to this level. Never, never, never to this level. You know, when you want to talk about, all right, it's a grand larceny, it's over $1,000 or it's worth $800. Is that crime stat manipulation? Yeah. Is that corruption? Yeah, I'll say it's corruption. It's a lie. It is. But in the grand scheme of things, is it major corruption? I don't think so. You know, what I'm witnessing today, and I'll just take it to Times Square, is like you see today, you see a lot of major crimes, stabbings, shootings, robberies, pregnant women. I tweeted about something. Actually, I didn't tweet about it. I think Viral News tweeted about it, and I retweeted him. And it was about a pregnant woman who was beat up and robbed by her boyfriend. It's robbery. Boyfriend was charged with petty larceny. You know, this is something that's a high-profile incident that's in the news. You know, how is that happening? You know, we see felony assaults, felony robberies, and, you know, it's being reported, media incidents are being reported, and it's like, oh, yeah, he was charged with a misdemeanor by the NYPD. You know, so it's clear and blatant manipulation of the crime numbers on major crimes where you're keeping, you're blaming bail reform, you're blaming the DAs, you're blaming the judges, but yet the NYPD is more guilty than all of them because they're downgrading it before it ever gets into the criminal justice system. So you're helping these violent repeat offenders stay out on the street, and absolutely, you don't know where to properly deploy resources. And on top of it, you're saying, no, everything's good. Yeah, no, we're at historic lows. We don't need any more cops. They don't need raises. Everything's good. The morale's good. You know, it's a complete lie, and you're forcing your younger cops and you're forcing in your supervisors into bending their integrity, bending their morals. And the people who don't have a spine, those are the people that get ahead. Those are the people that move up. That's what's happening. And so was it always part of the culture? Yeah, maybe it was always part of the culture, but not like this. Now it's completely rampant. And it's there's things that I've seen that I was like, I don't know how in God's green earth you're putting pen to paper and doing this. As a 6-month rookie, as a sergeant signing off on this, as a desk officer, as a lieutenant, as a CO, I have no idea on God's green earth what you people are thinking. And for those blatant crimes of the head, I personally think you should be held strictly accountable. If Marlon was terminated for doing absolutely nothing wrong, what do you think should happen to you when you blatantly re-victimize a victim? You blatantly like, oh, you were beat up, you were robbed. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to document it as this, so it's a misdemeanor. And then later on down the road, she gets beat up and robbed again or raped or possibly killed. And you could have been the force to ensure that that person met the criminal justice system correctly the first time. I'm all for, forget even just you getting terminated. I'm all for slapping handcuffs on all of you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get worse because keep in mind the state budget is going on 3 weeks late, and the mayor's budget was due, the preliminary was due on the 1st, I believe. Let's see. The state was actually due April 1st, right? So the city's budget depends upon the state's budget. And again, the state's budget is over a month late now, right? So I think this is going to continue. And I think it's going to continue because again, we have budget deficit, we have shortages of cops, we have a lot of factors involved that contribute to problems in the job. And like we just talked about, problems like the response times of first responders in the city. So we have a lot of problems, and they don't seem to be getting resolved right now, you know? So what I believe is going to happen is the only thing they have left to do, which is manipulate your perception of what's happening in front of your eyes. right? And part of that manipulation includes manipulating this crime stat numbers. And I just don't see any way of them avoiding that, because they need to cover up the other problems that they have until, certainly with the budget, they need to cover it up until that is resolved and those budget deficits are resolved. And keep in mind that next year, on top of the problems we had closing the gap this year, you can add another 10 billion on top of that. And then the next year you could add another. So far they said it's 6 to 7, but more than likely it's going to balloon up to 10 billion again, because next year's was supposed to be 6 or 7 and the comptroller is saying it's 10. So I expect more of this crime stat manipulation. And I think with someone like Tish in charge, right? And LaPetri, who comes from certainly comes from that background per se, of disseminating the numbers and going through those numbers. I think that's going to put added pressure on COs to get in line with the program. Otherwise, your career is going to get stonewalled. And this is where we need the unions to speak up. And has anyone seen the CEA president in a while? In fact, does that guy is there even a president of the CEA? Because that guy never says anything, So.
Who? In my opinion, this is far more devious than we've actually seen, and what we know, and the observations that we made about crime manipulation and manipulation of statistics within crime in New York City. There's no doubt about it. But this stuff didn't happen overnight, and it can't happen overnight. So for the commanders out there that monitor the crime, by ensuring that your patrol cops will give you a text, by being Donnie Brasco and depreciating jewelry and depreciating assets, and you actually determine whether something is grand loss or lossy, depending on what you determine the value of something is. You're not Donnie Brasco. I'm sorry. We've talked about this numerous times. So it started somewhere, and this culture has been going on a long time to get to the point where we're actually lying about manipulation statistics. Now, John, you said that a lot of these people are put in positions where they bend your integrity. So I'm going to say this: you either have integrity or you don't. Because if you bend your integrity, to me, it says you didn't have any integrity at all. So shame on it. And I may know some of these commanders. That's fine. If you're a commander or you were a commander and you actually monitored and forced your patrol cops to send you a text, or your frontline supervisors to monitor the index crimes, then shame on you, because that sure as hell is manipulation crime statistics, because those cops are in a position of intimidation to actually notify you and actually document crime properly. Because you're in a position as an overhead and you're standing over them saying, well, I want to be notified when these crimes actually happen. So you think they're going to notify you, or they're going to manipulate those crimes so that they don't have to be in a position of fear to notify you. And that stepped all the way to the top. But now we got in a position where we've pushed it so far that it couldn't go any further, that now we have to lie. We have to lie because we don't have the manpower that we had to do before to actually do the job and actually monitor these crimes. We don't even have the manpower to actually monitor these crime stats. So we actually have to complete lie. So shame on them. And I worked with numerous commanders that thought they were Donnie Brasco. Oh, no, that TV is worth $800. It's 5 years old. Really? You're in the wrong business. If you could depreciate value, then why are you in this business? Every one of my commanders, they all became realtors. They all became Donnie Brasco. They could tell you the value of everything. It was a culture, and that culture has gotten to the position of now where they're lying. Why? Because it starts with the leadership. It starts with the past police commissioners and under the mayors that we have right now that are pushing these crime stats to lie. And they're all following suit so that they can go and they can actually self-serve and get promoted, and they can pave the way for their offspring. Shame on them. So you can't bend integrity. You either have it or you don't. So shame on them.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, I saw a comment there from Chief Marino, and I'm sorry, Chief, I got to push back on this one a little bit. I mean, the president of the CEA might be a good guy, but I'm seeing, I don't think he's doing what he should be doing right now, which is pushing back. And again, sorry to bring it up, but you go back to the scamdemic. Remember, the scamdemic may have been our pension problem because, again, we're not there anymore. We were forced out, but it's also you as a commander, it's also your manpower problem. Okay, because when you have a shortage of manpower, which you clearly all do now, and you need that extra guy on a foot post in your one of your problem sectors, or in transit, basically all of transit right now, I could have been that extra guy walking that foot post right now. So even though I wasn't part of the CEA, and therefore I wasn't his membership, the fact that guys like me and John aren't there is also the CEA's problem, because now you have less cops, and you could have used the extra manpower right now. So when his membership are getting grilled at Comstat for why didn't you do this, and the answer is clearly because I don't have the guys, because you took my guys and you put them in the Bronx and all out for the summer, and I'm short of personnel in my own precinct. The answer should have been, hey, you know those extra guys, that guy you got that guy you have in Intel, those extra guys you have in Intel, we could use them over here for the summer, and we're not there anymore. So again, it's my pension problem, but it's also the CEA's and the commanders' manpower problem, and guys like the CEA president should have been speaking up for all of this. Okay, and he should be speaking up for the problems you see now, and again for the manipulation we've seen before, and he's not. And it now is his membership that gets grilled unfairly for problems that are out of their hand, out of their uh, um,
Control.
control. Thank you.
No, I just want to say this, John, before you go. It's amazing that everyone, every time we talk about an issue, people always jump up right away. Oh, this one's a good guy. That one's a good guy. Apparently everyone in the NYPD is a good guy, but yet we have all these problems. How do we have all these issues if everyone's such a good guy? Can we stop calling everyone a good guy? Someone has to earn that right to be called good. Maybe he's nice, but is he good? Is he actually being effective, getting the job done? Stop. We call everyone a good guy. If everyone was such a good guy, there would be no issues in the police department. They're not good guys. Maybe nice guys, but there's a difference. And I hope we don't mistake that.
No, yeah, that's a fair point. Like we give a lot of criticism about a lot of people, and I think, and by the way, I think that when we talk about the unions, the criticism's totally warranted, because I haven't seen a union president since Ed Mullins. I'm sorry, I just haven't. That is union representation, and I know there was a lot. The scandal pushed them out. I know I'm not. Maybe we'll get into that one day. We'll go into it. Maybe he'll come on here, but I haven't seen representation. So yeah, he's dealing with serious issues. I wish him well. I pray for him. I hear great things about Chris Monahan. I hear great things about a lot of people. I think a lot of people are a good guy. As far as a union president, he's horrific. He should resign his position.
Thank you very much.
And move on, because he's not helping anyone. I mean, we'll get into it with Wilson, but a union president has no comment. What are you saying? You're saying your guy's an idiot, and I will get into it, because I do think Wilson is an idiot, just so that we're clear before we get down there. But from a union perspective, from a representation perspective, you should always have a comment as a union president. And all of these issues that we talk about on this podcast, I've never heard Chris Monahan bring up one of them. I never heard Lou Turco bring up one of them. I never heard Vinnie Valalong bring up one of them. I have heard Hendry and Monroe eat off of this podcast and bring some of the stuff to light. Some of it, very really tailored view, dumbed down things of what we're saying, and then use them for talking points. So to their credit, I do know that they're listening and watching right now. To their credit, I will say that at least they're trying to be in tune with their membership and trying to run some type of media campaign. But like when we're talking about the clear Comstat manipulation, we're talking about the clear crime manipulations, you're putting your members in situations where they could actually go to jail and lose their career, and it's happening, and you're not saying a word about it. You're not saying a word about it because the almighty dollar and your future or your children's future or whatever it is that you're worried about is more important than the protection of your guys. And that's why I continuously say there should not be a union president who is active on that job. There should not everyone should be a retired cop in charge of the PBA, should be a retired sergeant in charge of the SBA, retired lieutenant in charge of the LBA, retired captain in charge of the CEA. And that's it, because these people are too tied in to what's happening. And so great guy, whatever, that's good. I always say it. I think most people that we talk about on here deep down are decent people. Some of them did very bad things, like when we talk about a Jeff Madry, I could say that Jeff Madry is a nice guy.
Mhm,
He's a,
mhm.
I could say that. We talk
was.
about
He
we
was.
talk about
True.
all of the guys
True.
that are up for potentially being the police commissioner. They're all nice guys. Some of them are even greatly experienced. What do I think of them as the police commissioner? I think they're going to be spineless cowards who are going to bend to whatever Mamdani tells them to do. So and like this is what we've seen the last 13 years. And look at this. Like, this was the protest the other night, right? And all the things that people had to deal with here, all of the complaints these cops are getting, cops were injured here. Do you know what the NYPD said about this protest? They said that this was a peaceful protest. No arrests were made. Does this look peaceful to you? And why is it that we're saying we're not getting paid $200,000 a year to sit around and represent cops? Why is it that we're the ones saying that we don't have an $80 million budget with attorneys on payroll to fight for cops? Because if we did, representation for the police department would look a lot different. The media narrative in the police surrounding the NYPD would look a lot different. And the leadership of the NYPD would have look a lot different, because they wouldn't get away with the shit that they're getting away with, like this, calling this a peaceful protest and saying that no arrests were made. And look who's there again. Look, Chief Edwards, his sergeant was there again. And look who he didn't call in again. Oh, that's right, the SRG. I guess we were just going to wait until one of them threw an IED before we called the SRG in there, right? I mean, it's, again, a lack of leadership. It's a lack of the truth, and no one's representing any ranks. I gave Hendry and Monroe their kudos a little bit. They should be gone too. They have no business. They're cowardly to the core. The George Floyd riots into the mandate exposed that none of these unions have your back. They have their own personal concerns way ahead of the representation of their members.
Mom, before you go ahead, I just want to say, we're talking about crime manipulation. We're talking about crime stats. Here's manipulation right here. Just the NYPD projecting that this was a peaceful protest and no arrests made shows you that crime is being manipulated, shows you that the stats are a lie. I could watch this video right now and I could find a crime being committed. Right now, as we speak, they're impeding on the lives of New Yorkers right now. This is complete obstruction. This is a crime right here. That's not a peaceful protest. No arrests made. The reason why no arrests made, because they want to downgrade crime. It goes exactly what we're saying. This is proof right in front of your face.
Yeah. Just to quickly go back to what me and Eric agreed, that Madry was a nice guy, and if policing was just block parties and street and get community events and get-togethers, Madry's the man. But as you can see from these videos, right, policing, it takes a little bit more than that. It's not just the feel-good events, It takes leadership, and it takes somebody to put their foot down when the cops need it. And you look at that video that John just showed. I mean, think of it for a second. Are we getting paid to play tug of war over there? I mean, like, come on now, come on. If I have a protest to go to, and Chief Edwards is in charge of that protest, man, you better get your coffee before, you better get your water, beforehand, because it's going to be seems like it's going to be a long day for you. Okay. But, who wants to bet the progressive media is no longer going to be, putting Chief Edwards on those talk shows or giving him nice interviews after that. Right. But yeah, that event is, again, it's another shit show. Okay. It's another shit show. And it shows that these protesters do not respect the cops there. So how if the protesters don't respect the cops, and right now police telling them to back off or to move back or to stop doing that, they're not going to follow orders. Then what hope is there when the NYPD changes SRG into that BS dialogue, policing unit that they want to move it to? What hope is there of that working? How are you going to negotiate with them when they don't want to hear it and they don't respect your authority? So,
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Jessica Tisch said, so I guess she holds her word. She said they're not going to change their rhythm in response to protest, right? So if you look at that protest, they haven't changed their rhythm. SRG is not present. They're still following the protest settlement agreement. The man that failed at a protest, in my opinion, who's lauded as a hero, and that's Chief Edwards, where not one, but two IEDs were actually deployed at Gracie Mansion. That wasn't a successful response. That was a complete failure. So the same person that was responsible for a failure is still responsible moving forward for further protests that look like complete riots, leaving New York City residents vulnerable to more bomb attacks. And those, in my opinion, those were bomb attacks. They did not detonate because, fortunately, the bomb makers didn't know what they were doing. But that was a success. The attack happened. Right? If I do a dry run, rhetorically speaking, if I did a dry run and took something to a protest to see if I could successfully deploy it, to me, that's a success. The fact that it didn't detonate is just pure luck. And we see the same template going on. Tiny Kinsella, who's responsible and complete failure for overtime in the police department, is still in the same position. Chief Edwards, that failed in response to that past protest, which turned to a riot, which turned to a bomb attack, he failed. But he's been lauded as a hero, and he still responds to these protests, and they're still following the protest settlement, which to me says if you're a New Yorker right now, the NYPD does not care about your life, and they're willing to take the risk to play politics and have a potential for a further bomb attack that may happen again. And that's exactly what's happened. So we see lying about crime stats, the manipulation of crime stats right in front of your face. We see them follow protest settlement, not have an SRG present, put New York City residents vulnerable to more attacks, putting the same failed leadership in those spots. Nothing has changed. What they're doing is just loading it right in front of your face, and they're just laughing at you, and they don't care, and they're going to tell you crime is great, and tell you this is peaceful. Right now, we're watching a riot. Crimes are not being documented. No arrests made. Why? So they can tell you it's a success. That is a complete lie, and they're doing it to your face. And anyone, you can say, going back to the nice guy thing. Yeah, most people are nice. That's the reality, right? Most people in life are nice, but that doesn't mean they're good. And maybe they're nice to your face. It's the same thing when you go to a restaurant. If you knew what actually went on in the kitchen, you would never eat there. If anyone ever worked in the restaurant business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you go to a restaurant, it's beautiful. It looks all nice. Go back in the kitchen. You probably won't eat there. It's the same thing in the police department. Everyone's all nice to your face. But what goes on behind closed doors, if you actually knew what goes on behind closed doors, and we do, then you wouldn't trust these people because it's failed leadership. If you're monitoring crime, you're failing. That's a lie. If you're not making arrests in these situations, you're lying to the public. Lie, lie, lie. That's what they're doing. They want to be nice and shake hands, but what's really going on behind closed doors is a lie in your face.
So Danny Reagan says when SRG arrests people, those people later sue in New York City for civil rights violation. New York City paid $800 million out in settlements in 2025. Great point. That's a great question, except your point is wrong because we've discussed this so many times on the show. It's not even funny. But it's I wasn't going to plan on talking about this topic, but it's something that's been annoying the shit out of me. So I was going to do a video on it later. I'm watching all of these police or law enforcement influencers or experts, and I'm watching them push this all the same narrative. Body cameras have debunked what BLM did. Body cameras have stopped the BLM grift. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, these people have absolutely no clue. Did Axon pay you to say that? Did Axon pay you to say that body cameras have stopped the BLM grift? Because the BLM grift has always been there, way before BLM was ever in there. Whose fault is it that New York City paid out $800 million in settlements in 2025? Yet I have evidence in cases like mine when New York City violates actual people's civil rights, their religious freedom, when they violate their own policy when it's related to religious accommodations. I've submitted irrefutable proof of it, and New York City spending millions of dollars to fight my case. The city's motion to dismiss, I'm waiting now over a year for a decision from it, when normally that decision is made on the spot, because they're looking at any way to throw that out. Now, agitators at these protests, they're getting settlements. You know why they're getting settlements? Because what happened with the body camera, it didn't stop the BLM grift. Now, when we've talked about it numerous times on here, where we said, yeah, if you're in a major incident, you're in a shooting, and depending the political narrative, the body camera may not help you in that scenario. But, you're accused of a rape. You're accused of this insane thing, and the body camera completely disproves it. Yeah, it helps in that point. But what the body camera also does is it gives people the ability to narrow down to split seconds. Say, oh, he shouldn't have did that there. That's why you now see cops getting indicted. No. Yeah, the 3 punches were good. The 4th one was no good. No, yeah, he could have did all that stuff. Yeah, no, that guy was wrong. But I just don't like what that cop did there. And it's on New York City Corporation Council that they settle all of this. And if you look at New York City Law Department data, and I've done this in the past, I've done this for a long time in the past, and usually every year or so I'll go back and look at it. And you look at the lawsuits against the NYPD, nearly 95% of them never hit the courtroom. They settle right away. The BLM grift is alive and well, and it's called the anti-police grift. Let's just sue the NYPD, and we'll win money. And all the lawyers know it. I know a ton of lawyers that I respect, and they're like, well, how could I not make the money? How could I not sue them? I mean, they violated this policy or this, and whether they did or they didn't, they're just going to settle with me anyway. They're only going to settle anyway, and if it's not me doing it, it's going to be somebody else. And so it's not the SRG's fault that New York City paid $800 million out in settlements. That is the people that are elected in charge of New York City, particularly the last 3 mayors, and New York City Corporation Council settling these cases, not fighting them in court, emboldening these bad actors to go ahead, resist arrest, fight with the cops, get arrested, sue, and then they get a settlement payment and they pay out. I mean, we paid protesters during a riot $30,000 each for rioting. We paid for rioters. Not only did our tax money through NGOs and not-for-profits go to them to put them out on the streets that day, but then they got a bonus at $30,000 each for rioting. So there's no debate here, Danny. The debate's over. We've spoken about this before. This is a no point. The point is that it's New York City leadership that's paying $800 million out in settlements. Doesn't prove that the SRG or the NYPD, in fact, did anything wrong. And that's why you'll see guys with not hundreds of millions, but millions of dollars in lawsuits in their name. And yet they're active cops being lauded by the department every day because they did absolutely nothing wrong. Lawsuit proves nothing. Lawsuit settlement proves absolutely nothing.
Well, I think that's a great point. I mean, any active cop has been the subject of lawsuits. And unfortunately, in most cases, the cops are not kept up to speed. They're not informed of what's going on with their case. In fact, most cops, including myself, in past lawsuits, you sign off for indemnification. And unless it actually goes to trial, in most cases, you don't hear about it. And then you'll find out once it goes to a settlement, you'll actually look it up in court documents and find out there was a settlement on a substantial number. And unfortunately, the burden and the blame goes on the cop. And especially with the 50A right now, the exposure, it makes the cop look like there's some wrongdoing. In reality, it's settlements, and the cops really don't take much part in those lawsuits unless it's an actual trial. And I would say it's less than 10% of those cases that actually go to trial in rare cases. Now, I have been to some trials, but most of them were just settled without my knowledge or knowing anything about that case, completely left in the dark. And what I was told numerous times that in most cases, it cost New York City $15,000 just to go to court, not even to have a hearing or to have any trials. So if they can settle a case, they'll settle it just to avoid going to court. Now, to my understanding, in the 70s, they implemented some laws that changed and made it more incentivized lawyers to actually take these cases on, because what was happening was lawyers would take these cases on And if they didn't win, they would lose completely. And what they did back then, they changed it. And if the lawyers can only win $1, right? They don't even care about their plaintiffs. If the lawyer can win $1 in that case, then they'll get paid by the city for all the hours that they worked. They bill the city and they get paid for it. So it's really incentivizes these lawyers to take these cases when even they're absolutely ridiculous. And they know damn well that their client is a perpetrator, a violent perpetrator, a predicate felon, but they don't care. As long as they can win $1, that lawyer is going to get paid for the hours that he worked. So it's huge incentive for these lawyers to take these cases. The city settles because it just doesn't pay for them to go to court. Now, the reality is maybe if they spent more money and took these cases to trial, maybe it would actually deter people from filing these ridiculous, frivolous cases. So a lot of that's what's happening. And it's a shame most of the cops, including myself, had no idea what was going on with their cases. And if you actually tried to contact corporation counsel, you were left in the dark. So that's the reality. And unfortunately, with the 50A and there's no pushback from the unions, the exposure looks and gives the appearance that it's on the cop. Just an extreme failure in all aspects of this.
Yeah. This is why you need unions to push back and do their job. And their job in the ecosystem as stakeholders, the stupid globalist term, right? In the ecosystem is to push back, and to speak up when cops and other appointees of the political establishment can't speak up. It's their job to speak up and to push back against these things. And I'm gonna also say that just to go back on the body cameras, that the leftists have gotten everything they wanted. They've gotten everything they wanted, and still they're unhappy. And still they're gonna tell you how police are abusive and all this BS. And the thing is, you're never going to appease people that are broken. I have my favorite response now online on Twitter is to tell people to go fix your personal life. Go find a way to get over your childhood drama, because yelling at cops and hating on the cops is not going to fix it. And I say that because these people are these politicians are appealing to a very small vocal, a minority of people that are broken. Okay. And they have fundamental personal problems and personal issues. And no matter what you do, you're never going to appease them. Okay. So this is why we need unions to speak up and to give us the blunt truth about the situation, because the people that we have there, the appointed people, are going to try and appease them, and it's not going to work, and it's only going to make life more difficult for membership.
So, I mean, this is just an example of the nonsensical lawsuits that come out. So, for those of you that don't know, a hijab is traditionally worn by Muslim women. It covers their nose, and basically all you get is their eyes. Women wearing hijabs were arrested, right? And part of the arrest procedure is that we need to document who was arrested, right? A mugshot, take your photo. New York City paid $17.5 million for demanding people who were arrested show their face and be able to be pictured. So, I mean, this is how nonsensical, New York City Corporation Council is in our politics. So is it the fault of the cops that locked them up? Absolutely not. The city just settles the case right away, doesn't even argue it. When you look at these COVID cases, the very few that was successful, the reason they were successful and the city ultimately winded up settling, because when through depositions, and a lot of that stuff I posted on my social media, through depositions and through discovery that the judge ordered them to have to give, once they got backed into a corner, they would just settle. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, we can't show, in fact, that we denied everybody's religious accommodations, and we actually violated their civil rights." So then they'll settle. So, but this is like the form of how New York City settles. So it's just I would never put the lawsuits on a cop. I just think that's a ridiculous statement to do, to even say. So I really got nothing else on that other than, you know, I don't know what the hell Dan Bongino and the rest of them are talking about. Yeah, dude, this debunked this stopped BLM's grift. It absolutely did not. Absolutely did not. Body cameras are still continuously being misused.
Yeah, just a quick housekeeping from earlier. I had problems with it, but so FDNY, yeah, is down 3%. Correction is down 7%, and NYPD is down 2.5%. So correction, that's 500 officers. FDNY EMS is 300. So
First of all, and those numbers I think are completely skewed. I highly doubt that the NYPD is only down 2.5%. I think those numbers are completely skewed. I would love to know
yeah,
what the
that's
real,
their numbers that they gave to the comptroller. So
right, their numbers. And we heard it
yeah.
at City Council, ask questions about manpower, but when it came to Jessica Tisch, there was no pushback. Clearly, there's definitely some intimidation towards Jessica Tisch because Jessica Tisch could have gave those real numbers. She said initially on the onset, she commenced as the police commissioner that she's data driven and everything's based on data. So she should have the data for that. So if your campaign and your platform as commissioner is about data, where's the data on the manpower? That is something that easily should be printed out. Every precinct in the entire city has a roster. And I knew the roster damn well when I was at PSA 7. And I was told that roster is completely diminished. And that's happening on a whole scale throughout the entire city. Every roster is completely diminished, right? And that shows you the manpower. And it's my opinion, I'm sure what they're doing is on every roster, there's a list of who's out sick, who's on temporary, maybe who's out maternity. And I believe they're including those numbers in their actual numbers to give a misrepresentation of how many cops are out there, which is just a shame of what they're doing. So, yeah, let's get on the next topic, brother. We got there's a lot to discuss today on this roundtable, and I think people are looking forward to the next one. John, let's open up on it.
Yeah, HFL just corrected me though. I just want to correct that. He said that the burqa, that's a burqa that I described, not a hijab. The burqa
Correct.
covers everything. The hijab just covers the head. But it doesn't matter. Like you can't go. Eric can't wear that baseball hat and take a mugshot. It's coming off. You know, if you know, so like it doesn't matter what it is. It's the same. It's the same point. Like, but the cops are following the policy of the NYPD, and they're getting sued, and the city settling. It's, you know, so that's it. So then the super speeders, let's get to the super speeders first. So super speeders bill, that is absolutely going in. Hasty said he was going to put that in. That was a super speeders bill where, you know, if your vehicle gets 16 tickets in 1 year, then they're going to put this device inside of your vehicle. So Hasty said the owner of the vehicle will be required to pay for the speed limiting device, right? So you're going to pay for the device. It then costs approximately $150 to install. And then you're going to pay a $4 a day subscription. So like we said, like we picked apart the super speeders bill and said how dumb it is and how it's not going to do, it's going to have a near zero effect on public safety. And it does nothing to stop the person who is actually behind the wheel. It just limits the vehicle. It's like saying, yeah, you know what? John shot a bunch of people and he's reckless with his guns. So we're just going to put a limiter on one of his guns. Right. But, you know, and he's going to have to pay a subscription and he's going to have to buy this device and pay for it to get installed. And, you know, he's going to pay every day. And so basically it's going to cost about $1,460 a year for you to own this. That's not with the installation and the price of the product. So again, it's profit motive behind it. And then, you know, as well as we do, we showed you last week how they're going to continue dumbing down the speed limit. They're going to continue dumbing down the amount of tickets you need for this to get in there. And they're going to continue to fine you for more nonsensical things in an effort to get you out of your vehicle. So, you know, this is just the beginning of much more restrictive legislation that's going to be coming. And, you know, anyone that was like, and we told you, they're hooking you with this cop behind a profit motive. There were big lobbyists in here. They were lobbying hard for this. They even got Frank Morano, a Republican, to push for this. And this is the real profit motive behind it. This is what it is. $1,460 a year plus the installation, plus the device, plus the cost of the device. So that is the true motivation behind the super speeders bill. So you all labeled James Giovansante a super speeder. Congratulations. Tomorrow, every single person on here is a super speeder. You own a car, you drive a vehicle, you pay for your registration and insurance. You too, my friends, are a super speeder. Speed limit device is coming to a city near you. It's going to be in your car one day.
Yeah. Better hope the city doesn't get the idea of putting that on cops, or on city workers, But yeah, this is all part of the you'll own nothing and be happy future that the globalists want, Now, in addition to renting your house, which you kind of technically do, as long as you're paying these property taxes, right? And in addition to renting your things like your phone, which now costs a fortune, and all the other subscription services in your life, now you'll be paying a subscription service for your car too. Okay. So all those of you who are on the job and who had no problem with this, congratulations, right? You're still working in the city. You're still tied to the city for, and some of you more than a decade. You're still old. Okay. Because you're still young in the job.
But just one thing, Marlon, I just thought of this. I'm sorry, but I'm going to forget it. Like, how is it even legal for the city to make a rule where you have to get into a subscription service? That cannot be legal.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to go to my buddy's company. Oh, you have to subscribe to the Finest Unfiltered because you were a bad boy. So you have to pay $25 a day to the Finest Unfiltered because you were a bad boy. Like, how is that legal? How is this America?
Yeah, it's even worse, John. Think of it. Government is now forcing you to subscribe to a corporate service.
Yeah.
It's like
it's
Exactly.
corporate tyranny.
Yeah.
It's corporate socialism. It's corporate communism. That's exactly what it is. No,
right.
you're subscribing whether you like it or not.
And it's funny, right? There's not numerous companies. They can't even say, hey, you get to choose which one you want to use, right?
It's a monopoly.
Right, it's a monopoly, exactly.
And I can't even buy it, Eric. Like, I don't want to pay if you have $4
That's
a
the
day.
same. I want to pick. What if you decide, you know what? I want the pink one. I want the pink machine that goes on my car. You can't even pick from this company. They tell you exactly which one, who you send that check to. I'm sure it comes right out of your account. Ridiculous.
Yeah, well, think of it. It's not just that. There's a larger discussion to be had here about the other services that government is going to be forcing you to take now. Okay, and I can make an argument about those solar panels. Those people that keep coming around and knocking on your door, because they come around to my house like once a week, and it's getting to the point where I got to put up a sign telling them I'm not interested. Right? I could make an argument that is another subscription service that government is forcing onto you, because government are putting the conditions into place with the energy costs and all that, and forcing people to go down a path where they're going to be subscribed to it for like upwards of a decade, and it's going to be attached to your house. You're going to have to pay for it, and if you don't pay for it, they're going to put a lien on your property. So, but there's a massive conversation to be had about that, because government is pushing us into a lot of different subscription services, and I think there's even more coming down the pipeline. Basically, government is now enforcing the monopoly, okay, instead of breaking up the monopoly. And,
Yeah, well, sorry. You know what's interesting about this? So I've read about this, right? And this is what's called the intelligence. It's intelligence, something kind of machine, but it's some type of intelligence machine where there's two types of, one is passive and active. So with this intelligence device that they have, they went right to the active one. And what is the active one? It's part of the super speeders bill, right? Where the active, the active device, right, doesn't allow the person to go a certain speed, really put some serious sanctions on that person in the car. Where they could have went to the intelligence one, the passive one. The passive one actually is more like a warning device, where it would make a sound or a vibration to advise someone, hey, you're going over the speed. So they bypassed the passive one and went right to the active one where they actually curb, because the reality is they don't want you to drive a car. They want to create an environment where driving car is so obtuse and so intrusive and so cumbersome and uncomfortable and awkward that you don't even want to drive a car. And that's the ultimate goal, in my opinion, based on the observations we made. They don't want you to drive that car. So make it so uncomfortable that you don't want to drive that car. Also, I think this is some infringement on your privacy. Not only the fact that they're actually curbing your speed, but part of this technology is having GPS. So not only does it stop your speed, but it has a GPS technology, so they know where and when you are, not only are when you're in a speed zone or speed trap or getting that speed summons if you're going over that speed, but they know exactly where you are and can track where you are and where you drive at all times. So they know exactly how much mileage you're doing, they know where you're driving, when you're driving. So this is a complete government overreach. There's an infringement on your life, infringement on privacy. I have a major issue with that. And you have to ask yourself, why did they go right to the active device and not the passive device? Because there are two different types, as I said before. And the active one actually, puts restrictions on you. But they could have had just a warning where it lets you know you're going over that speed and maybe have a sound or a vibration, but they went right to the active device. That's interesting because they don't want you behind that wheel. They don't want you driving the car. And that's the reality. And again, go back to what I said in a prior episode, that they picked, in my opinion, they found a cop, right? Most tangible form of government. How do you move the needle? Change agenda, you attack cops. Which borough has the highest amount of car ownership? That's Staten Island. So they found a cop that works in Staten Island, a cop that lives on Staten Island, and that cop, and they said Staten Island has 82 to 84% more car ownership in comparison to the other boroughs. So think about that.
Yeah, dude, it's a clear violation, all of this, of 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. And it removes due process. Ragrocks asks a great question. He says, John, how is this any different than a device in your vehicle from preventing you from driving drunk? It is so significantly different. It's not even funny. So let's just break it down. You drove drunk. You were arrested. You either pleaded guilty or you were found guilty. And in order for you to keep your license, you had to pay out of your pocket to put this thing in your vehicle so that you could drive drunk. This is one of those things that's usually only afforded to high-profile people like Tiger Woods, who should probably have this in every vehicle he owns. But, or he should probably just get a self-driving Tesla or just take an Uber. Use some of the money you got, Tiger, and take an Uber.
Yeah,
Take an Uber, dude. It's not that big of a deal. Get a driver. If you want, let us know. We'll start the finest security and protection. We'll drive you to and from your events. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays we're busy in the morning. But let us know. We'll get you a good guy, armed security. Don't worry about it, brother. Again, like I've said, the super speeders bill removes your due process. Now, when you're arrested for driving drunk, you are afforded due process. You're arrested. Now you go in front of the judge. You either plead guilty or you're found guilty. You go through the criminal justice process. When you're accused of being a super speeder, they never once put you behind the wheel of the vehicle. They not one mark on your license whatsoever. So your due process is gone, right? So now when we talk about your 4th Amendment, now they're sticking this thing in your vehicle, in your own personal private property that you have not. I didn't even do anything. I never had a trial about this. I never had a court. Nobody ever said that I sped, or else I would have marks on my license, right? I would put points on my license. So you stick something in your car. It removes your 5th Amendment because you have the right to never admit guilt, right? But they're labeling you as a super speeder, saying you're guilty. How am I guilty? You removed my due process. What are you talking about here? And 6th, you have the right to like a speedy and fair and whatever trial and all that. So it's a clear constitutional violation, significantly different from the driving drunk, because you were actually found guilty of this. You know, DOT, New York City DOT, I don't know how they're even in operation anymore. Somebody should really, really remove immediately the head of the DOT as well as his communication director, because they've been doing nothing online but coming out here and pushing this super speeders bill. And if you look at the verbiage they're using, it's very significant what they're saying. They're saying we're going to slow down. The super speeder bill is great. It's going to be in the budget, and it's going to slow down these vehicles. They never use the word driver. They're going to slow down the vehicle, not the driver. The driving drunk technology is done so that the person driving that vehicle who drove drunk can only drive that car as if they blow into the breathalyzer. A super speeder is slowing down a vehicle and doing nothing to slow down the driver. It's significantly different. It is a huge constitutional violation. And again, not only is it just, oh yeah, we're putting this device in your vehicle. No. You got to pay for it. You got to buy it from my friend, and you're going to pay him a daily subscription fee. Not even a monthly. You're paying him a daily subscription fee. So this is it. This is it in practice. This is what it looks like. Here you go. This is from New York Times.
Exploring it right now, and I mean that literally. My foot is on the ground. And as you can see, the maximum speed is the speed limit +6. The reason for that is this little box right here. It's called Intelligent Speed Assistance. It senses the speed limit of the road that I'm on and will prevent me from exceeding it. And it's a device that New York State Governor Hochul is planning to bring to vehicles around the city. To be clear, this is not going to be installed in every car in New York. The legislation is tackling what people call super speeders, drivers who have gotten more than 16 speeding violations in a year. There are already more than 14,000 vehicles in New York City that meet that criteria. Drivers who get ticketed by speeding cameras do not get points added to their license, which is why you have some drivers continuing to be on the road after racking up dozens or even hundreds of these tickets. Since 2023, the worst super speeder in New York City has racked up over 1,000 speeding violations. And that's significant because speeding is involved in nearly a third of all traffic fatalities. A driver going at 30 miles per hour is twice as likely to kill someone than if they were driving at 25 miles per hour in a crash. While the device is designed to cap speeds, there is flexibility in how it is installed in different vehicles. There is this giant red button here that says override, and that is how I would override the system and exceed the speed limit. But while the override button exists, the individual who has this device installed in their vehicle may have more restrictions on how many times or if ever they can use the override. Critics argue that the technology is invasive and could endanger drivers if it malfunctions. But the technology is not unprecedented. In fact, the manufacturers of this device also make the breathalyzer ignition locks that you might find in other cars. The CDC has said that those devices have actually reduced repeat DUIs by 70%. The finer details of the program have not yet been ironed out because this legislation is part of the executive budget, which has not yet passed. Advocates have been pushing for this technology for years, but so far it's run into opposition from legislators. And while the bill is up for debate at the state level, it would only be implemented within the city. This is part of a broader raft of actions by the city and state to make New York City streets safer. Mayor Mamdani early this year already announced
that we are going to reduce the speed limit to 15 miles per hour outside all eligible 2,300 school zones.
And that's important because many of these speeding violations take place close to schools, where speed cameras are already installed. But if the legislation is included in the executive budget, supporters of the bill hope that it's going to make streets safer and also significantly reduce traffic fatalities.
So, I mean, look, I support lowering the speed limit by schools. Take away all the cameras and put in speed bumps. That would be and real funny that they gave the breathalyzer technology. You know, repeat offenders are down 70% because of the technology. Oh, so it wasn't the arrest. It wasn't the suspension of their license. It wasn't the thousands and thousands of dollars in fines and the inconvenience to your life. It wasn't any of that. It was the technology. You know, listen to what these people are telling you. It's sick, man. It is sick, dude.
Yeah. But wait, there's more. Yeah, there's a lot more. Watch this now, right? Quick tangent, right?
Time for infomercials.
So in addition to now having to subscribe to your own car, this is a measure that's being pushed through city council right now, right? It's the residential parking permit system, right? So now you're going to have to pay a subscription service to the parking spot in front of your house. Okay. And we don't all in New York City, for those of you who don't live in New York City, right? New York City, there are parts of the city that are very congested. And you can have own a house that's, you know, $1 million property, multi-million-dollar property. But guess what? Your property doesn't come with a parking spot. It doesn't come with a driveway. And you're going to have to, sometimes you're going to have to drive around the block for hours trying to find a parking spot. Even though your house looks lovely. Look at these houses. They look pretty good, right? And they're pretty spacious inside, but you have no parking spot on the outside, right? So this residential parking permit would amount to basically an annual subscription fee that owners of those properties are going to have to pay the city in order to have a parking spot in front of their house, or to have a parking spot period in their neighborhood. So in addition to not owning your vehicle, you're not going to even own your parking spot. You're going to have to pay a subscription fee to that too. So it's getting even wilder in New York City.
Yeah, it really is getting to a point where people are forced to be in positions where they have to pay. It's monopolizing these companies, and that's not the American way. There's no doubt in my mind that this is a violation of the Constitution. It's a violation of your rights. John, you said the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment. Absolutely, this is absolutely ridiculous. Now, to my knowledge, based on what I've read so far, is that if you are elected and forced to have this super speeder in your car, that it's going to be anywhere from 6 months to a year. So I don't know if that's completely determined at this point. And so the questions I also have in this scenario is it going to be like some aggravated circumstances? You know, if you have a certain amount, they're saying 16 right now is the threshold, but if you have 50 or whatever number, arbitrary number chosen, could you potentially have this for 2 years or 5 years? And then what's the correlation and what's the connection with the super speeder and the insurance companies? Like how much will that increase your insurance? So will you have to now be, we have to also ask these questions. Will you have to be required to go to a specific insurance company? Will you have to have certain numbers, right? We always talk, people know when you buy a car and you lease a car, you're supposed to have, especially lease, you're supposed to have 100, 300. Will you have to carry 100, 300 on an older car because you have the super speeder? There's a lot of questions I think that haven't been unanswered. So we're not just talking about the amount of money that you're going to have to pay for the super speeders bill, but this could actually turn into something phenomenal. Like I said, you know, you're paying your insurance company. And, I also wonder if you're on the super speeders bill, unless the insurance company's getting some type of kickback, or maybe, will the insurance company drop these kind of people, right? Because if you have a super speeder in your car, and God forbid you do get into an accident, are you going to immediately be held liable? So I'm concerned for people, if they have the super speeder installed in their car, will insurance companies drop them and say, hey, we're not going to insure you because your liability is going to be on you? Or if they are going to be insured, that number is probably going to be astronomical. So I think these are things that haven't been really explored yet. And these are questions I think that we should ask. And I think it really, in the end, this comes down to money. And I think this is completely revenue-based policing. I often say there's a difference between actually public health and public safety dangers and revenue policing, revenue-based policing. In my opinion, this is completely revenue-based policing. I know, we have this young kid talking about how many speeders actually contribute to deaths. But again, we're talking about people that are on streets of 15 miles an hour, 20. Are they really super speeders? We're not talking about someone who's driving 110, 120 miles an hour on a 55-mile highway. We're talking about people that may be doing 30 miles an hour. Now, is it over the speed? Yes, but does that make them a reckless speeder? Not necessarily. And who's actually behind that wheel? We spoke about this numerous times when it comes to the car itself. So I think ultimately this is about revenue, and I think ultimately it's about making you not want to be behind the car. So how long will someone have to have a super speeder? And Rob Lukesh made a good point. Well, eventually, when they start to see this is successful and companies are making money, will the laws be changed, and instead of 16, now the threshold will be 12? So I just think I see this getting worse. I don't see it getting any better. And if this actually gets implemented, I mean, New York City is just a terrible place to live. If you have to pay for parking, all these things, pay here, pay there. You're taxed on your home. You're taxed on everything you buy when you go to the store. You're taxed on your paycheck. You're taxed on things you're taxed already. This is a hard place to live. I don't see why anyone else would want to continue living in New York City. I can't see how much, if you're there because you have to work there, but I don't see how people could really love New York City anymore. It just doesn't seem like a viable place to live.
Yeah, quick point about that. So this is the Super Speeders Act itself, the bill itself, rather, right? And basically, what they're saying is you have 12 months, and then the 12 months gets extended to 24 months, and then 36 months, and then indefinitely. Okay, so that just to answer your point, Eric.
Yeah, that's the reality. But
Yeah.
what insurance company is going to want to insure you if you have this super speed in your car indefinitely? The reality is, if you are in a car accident, the
I'll insure
liability.
you. I'll find us an insurance company. It's just you're just gonna have to pay quadruple the normal
Yep.
premium. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Don't worry about it. You're
Right,
good.
which
We'll insure you. You could always get insurance, Eric. Don't worry. I mean, and not unless you're a cop. Unless you're a cop.
Oh, that's true. If you're a cop, forget about it.
Yep.
You
And,
want police liability insurance. That's a totally different story.
Well, right. They'll make it pretty much impossible. And then the only people that are going to drive cars are completely elites. And the reality is, if you are a super elite, you're not driving a car anyway. Someone's driving you around. So who's going to drive these cars? Who's going to pay for the insurance? If your insurance already is $250 a month, and now it's $1,000 a month, and you pay the subscription, and you're paying for parking, who wants that car? You're going to be JK. You're going to be wearing a pink striped shirt, and you're going to be on your bicycle. That's what they want.
Well, the laws are for the law abiding. Okay, the only two people. The thing is, the wealthy could afford it, so they don't care. And the thing is, the people on the lower rung of the socioeconomic ladder are just not going to follow the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? And the only people stupid enough to follow the law are going to be the middle class.
100%, brother. Spot on. And it always happens,
this
right?
This is the world we live in, my friends. This is the world we live in.
And you know what? That is the truth. It always appears to be it's working middle class families, working middle class people that actually are obliging citizens that follow the law. Why? Because you're a W-2 employee and you have to follow these stupid draconian laws so you don't lose your job. If you're elite, money makes money, right? In the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I actually enjoy that book. I think there's a lot of opposition to it also, but I think it's a great book. And the best line in that book is, poor people work for money and rich people have money work for them. And that's the reality. Rich people have money work for them. They'll always be in a good position. Poor people are still working hard. They may not have the car, but it's middle-class people that are obliging citizens that have to follow those draconian laws because they're a W-2 employee.
Yeah. I also see comments in the live chat about England and those comparisons to the 15-minute cities. And I'm trying to find out who brought it up. King. Yeah, I saw your comment, King, and you are spot on with this. That's the ultimate goal. And to those of you who are referencing England, keep in mind that England in particular is the model for what they want to do to New York City. And there is a connection that I'm not going into it here, but there is a connection between us and England. And you thought we had a revolution for this years ago, but guess what? Throughout the hundreds of years since, England actually controls a lot of the stuff in America that you don't know about. But the ties go back to Wall Street and the city of London, which is their equivalent over there, and money. But I'm bringing this up because the city of Oxford, right, has dropped their, they've basically announced the 15-minute city over there. So the restrictions on their 15-minute city are incoming right now. So these are some of the restrictions that you're going to have on it, right? You're basically going to need a permit to leave to be able to drive out your 15-minute city, or to have people visit you in your 15-minute city. And that permit comes with mile restrictions. So again, this is the path that we're headed on. It's okay for you to drive your bicycle, though. You can do that all day long, right? For now, anyway.
No. Middle class, you got to register and insure your bicycle.
Yeah. No doubt about
don't worry about it. Poor, undocumented, we can't do anything to you. We're not criminalizing the real super speeders, the bikes, yet. We don't want to criminalize them. It's ridiculous. All right, let's get to it. I know a lot of people have been waiting. So Captain Wilson, NYPD Captain Wilson, he was at the protest outside of Wyckoff Hospital, which was a shit show, which we showed you on Monday. We talked about how, again, the NYPD has no idea what they're doing. Part of that deployment was Captain Wilson's fault, and clearly we could see why. But it raises a lot of debate about Captain Wilson, about freedom of speech, about what you could do in uniform, what you should do in uniform. Now, obviously, as a member of the NYPD, you need to be apolitical, right? Like totally apolitical. I always said I never cared if I agreed with your protest or I disagreed with your protest. I always just looked at you as all annoying to me. Because I'm like, I don't need to be out there. My personal politics has no business in my job. I'm there to defend the First Amendment rights of everybody. So, in my opinion, I'll play the video. This was the most dumbest thing I've ever seen, but it was the most unintentionally funniest thing I've ever seen. I kept getting it like numerous times throughout the day, and I was busy. And I just kept seeing this guy's face. And I'm like, I didn't have time. So like about 5 o'clock, I had to take my daughter somewhere. I finally get a chance to like go through all my texts and like look. So I start looking, and one of my good friends texted me this. He's like, bro, you're not talking about this? And I click it and I spit my water out. It was so funny. It was dumb. It was unprofessional. But of course I defended him online, even when his own Captain's Endowment Association president didn't, because this was the gateway that's been opened up in 2020, and even prior to that, I think, where it's okay to inject your personal politics into your profession in uniform, on duty, doesn't matter, as long as you align with the one-party Democratic-controlled rule in New York City. If Captain Wilson said he wanted ICE out of New York City, or ICE has no business in New York City, or he doesn't want any kings, or down with Trump, none of this would be a problem. I mean, he wouldn't face any of the issues that he would face if he took a knee, if he raised his fist in the air. All of these things have happened. If he wore a pussy hat, because we had commissioners. We had a commissioner of the diversity, equity, inclusion wearing a pussy hat at a department event. And if you remember that was them protesting Trump and everything else. And making all of these inflammatory comments about whites and about Republicans and about conservatives and about Catholics and straight people. Like, those things were all acceptable for years now, since de Blasio came in office. So this is what happens when you blur the line. This is Captain Wilson. So then we'll get all you guys' thoughts on it. Here's Captain Wilson.
He's a temporary. He's expendable. Temporary.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
You don't like Mamdani? Well, he's your boss. You want a minute? He's your boss. He's like temporary. He's your boss. No, is he your boss though? Is he your boss? He's your boss. He's your boss. Exactly. I don't want to. He's what? He's an embarrassment. Yo, you say your mayor is not my mayor. You already, all Democrats say no. They still he's a temporary. He's expendable.
Oh, man. This is comedy hour, brother. This is comedy hour, man. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
I think he's going to be a legend on his job for that, and I know nobody's going to care about what he did before on the job. He's going to be remembered for this. He's going to be internet famous forever now.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it doesn't matter if he was the dumbest cop, the best boss. It doesn't matter. This is what he's going to remember for. The having brass balls. Listen, is it ridiculous? Is it unprofessional? Yeah. But right now, it just shows you the frustration that's going on in the police department. It shows you the frustration and how there's no structure anymore. It's out of control. So, and listen, don't get me wrong. It's funny. It's hilarious. And here's why I don't have a problem with it. Is it unprofessional? Should we be speaking like that in uniform? No, but I don't have a problem with it. And I'll tell you why. Because no longer is the police department apolitical. We heard John Schell and Kaz Daughtry electioneering for Eric Adams throughout his entire tenure as mayor, especially when he was running for mayor. And why? Because it was in a positive light, because they said it in a positive manner, and it was because they were pro-Democrat, it was okay. But now, because it's a negative term towards a Democrat, now it's not a problem. Listen, I think it's hilarious. He's funny as hell. He'll be remembered for this forever, and he's probably on his way out the door anyway, so he clearly just doesn't give a fuck. So I'm with you, spot on, brother. But you know what? That's why I don't have a problem with it, because no longer do we have a standard in this police department anymore, right? I heard Robert Boyce, who was actually on this network, but shame on him, because I heard Robert Boyce on Channel 7, retired chief of the NYPD. On Channel 7, he said, oh, you should never speak this way. Police officers are supposed to be apolitical, and to refer to the NYPD patrol guide, you're not supposed to publicly express your opinions, and you're a mouthpiece for the police department. You're supposed to be responsible and professional. Well, where were you, Robert Boyce, when John Shell and Kaz Daughtry were talking like children and totally unprofessional, and they were talking about Eric Adams? You never said a word. Where were you then? Where were you when these chiefs were kneeling down, showing their political ideals and actually expressing their opinions? It wasn't a problem then. But now we have a problem with Captain Wilson. So I don't have a problem with Captain Wilson, because they already set the tone that no longer is the NYPD apolitical. To me, them kneeling down is even more unprofessional than Captain Wilson. So Captain Wilson, I salute you, brother. While it sounds unprofessional, you are a legend in my mind, and you are my new hero, brother, because at least you said it loud and you had the balls to say it. Maybe you were stupid, I don't know. But you know what? You set the tone, and maybe Jessica Tish needs to come out now and actually set some damn standards. For me, getting on your knees is far worse. We can never get back from that, because them getting on their knees has made the cops more vulnerable and made it more dangerous for them. When it comes to Captain Wilson, he didn't make the streets more dangerous for them. These guys did.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, the same people who had, what's interesting is the people who had no problems with this now have a problem with what Captain Wilson said, So I just think that wasn't what happened back then wasn't good. And I'm not condoning what Wilson said. I think it's hilarious though. But I'm just saying, let's be consistent here, okay?
Exactly.
If I thought back then was a problem, okay, that's a problem. So if that's a problem, then if this is a problem, then that was a problem too.
Gal Shreko says they kneeled in the best interest of all involved. They de-escalated that situation. Well, I mean, that is factually incorrect, because if you know exactly what happened, and for those of us that were there, what happened is nearly every single time they kneeled, you know what happened to those executives? They got their windows smashed later on. They ran out of there like little girls. They went running to their vehicles and ran as their windows were smashed out of their cars. So they absolutely did not de-escalate the situation at all. They actually escalated it further. Absolutely disgraceful. And, I don't even think this is like, or listening to Rob and Ron last night talk about it. And they were saying how like everything's like a tiered level. And I don't even think it's a tiered level here. I think like if you align with the democratic structure, whether you're a nobody peon in the NYPD or you're a 3-star chief, it doesn't matter. You're perfectly fine. Raise your fist in the air, take your knee, say Trump's an asshole, say Trump's not your president, say you hate ICE. Nothing happens to you. Now, when we talk about Wilson, I mean, everyone says, I know a lot of people that know him. They all say he's a moron, that he says the dumbest shit. He is the epitome of what the NYPD has become, in my opinion. I mean, because look, I don't know anybody more political than me on the job. I never knew anyone. Like, I would talk about things. People would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Where do you get this from? I don't care. I don't want to talk about this. And I would never say and do what he did. I definitely have, I don't think it's anything that anybody should replicate, but it's hysterical. He lit his career on fire. He got trampled. He deserves it. I mean,
I heard his career was already on fire.
And I mean, at the end of the day, maybe that's what he wanted. I mean, being a duty captain, look, he was a captain for life anyway, right? Like, he was a captain for life anyway. Come on. Like, let's face it. He's not the brightest guy in the toolbox. He's definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. And he was always going to be a forever captain anyway. So what does he care? Like, they send him to the Bronx. The shit he said about the mayor, I don't even care. Like, I don't know where Wilson lives, but he said he's not my mayor. Maybe he actually is not his mayor. It's possible. He's temporary.
Hey, Johnny,
it's stupid. Like, there's nothing. I don't think that's where he got in trouble, is what I'm saying. I don't think he got himself when he says he's total nonsense. He's temporary. He's not my mayor. Like, I don't think that he gets in trouble for that if he just says that. I don't think it's a big deal at all because he might not be his fucking mayor, like I said, or whatever. I don't see him as my mayor. Is it a dumb thing to say? Is it correct? I think the thing that really got him and the thing that made me spit out my water is when he said that he said Democrats are a total waste of humanity. I'm like, come on, dude. You like, like, come on. You don't, and like, God. I don't think he really believes that, by the way. He just got hooked. He got hooked. They're sitting there. They're annoying the shit out of you. And eventually at some points, people say and do some dumb shit. Now, a guy that eats onions, like they eat apples, I mean, he's probably going to say a lot dumber shit than most of us. But we've all been there, dude. You're standing out there for hours. There's a bunch of nonsense going on. You're set up for failure by your leadership. And you got people antagonizing you. And sometimes you give in. But I don't know you go that far, but it was hysterical. So, yeah, I agree with you. It goes down as a legend. There was a patch that came up. My phone, I'm having a little issue with my phone right now, or else I'd bring it in. But I thought it was hysterical. I mean, I applaud him. But, if you wanted to go to the Bronx every day and get yourself to a detail, congrats, you did, because you were probably always just going to be an XL traveling around. So.
Hey, John, was he... Is he the union's mayor? Maybe he's right. It's not his mayor. He's not for most of the union guys. He's not their mayor either. So that was a true statement. Maybe he lives on Long Island. Who knows? I don't know where he lives. But
well, he certainly won that one because getting transferred to what do he? I think he got transferred to 1 right? Huh?
Yeah, 911. Yeah, communications.
Yeah. Think of it. I think he's leaving in like June or July.
Well, he could. I personally don't think he's going anywhere. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he'll face discipline. I think he's going to be a 30-year forever captain, dude.
Maybe he'll be Ruben. He'll be there forever.
Yeah, he'll be like Ruben.
Well, it's a whole run to go to 911 then. Yeah. Think of it. He got out of the precinct and you don't have to worry about the precinct BS. And now he's chilling at 911. So that's a win to me. As a captain.
Listen, I agree. Listen, someone here said it's stupid, and he said Eric, both are wrong, right? Him and the Chiefs getting on the knees. So here's my point. I'm not saying he's right. Listen, believe me, I don't think you should ever be unprofessional in uniform, right? But my point is, you can't throw him discipline. There has to be standards, because what those Chiefs did by getting on a knee, that's a political statement, and that political statement has ramifications to last for decades. Cops are in a position right now, part of that, because those Chiefs are on their knees. I don't believe that Captain Wilson's statement is going to put cops at risk. While it may be stupid, I think it's far less egregious than it is what those Chiefs did. It's far less egregious than John Shell and Cass Daughtry going out there and electioneering for Eric Adams. That's my point. In the end, it's actually funny. It should be like because it's funny. It's funny. It's silly. Should he be saying that all Democrats are no good? No, but it's funny because there's no stand. Now, if there was a stand in the police department was professional, and Chiefs weren't getting on their knees, figuratively and literally getting on their knees. If we didn't have Chiefs at one police plaza giving out overtime like it's candy at one police plaza for their own benefit, if we didn't have Chiefs with failed leadership, if we didn't have all this complicity going on, if we didn't have no accountability, if we didn't have John Shell and Cass Daughtry on social media, just completely unprofessional and electioneer for Eric Adams, then I would say, okay, maybe we could actually do something. But you can't do anything now. You've allowed all these things to happen. So in my opinion, Captain Wilson should get a pass. Now, if Captain Wilson just wanted a transfer, great job to him. He succeeded. He kind of done pretty well. So, but it wasn't hilarious, and he will be remembered forever as someone who has balls. So sometimes stupidity and having balls could be the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, John, did you see that video that Mike reposted? I think it's from Instagram.
What video is that, dude?
This is the guy who's making fun of it. He's spoofing the situation with the captain.
Oh yeah, do you have it? I could pull it. I could get it.
Yeah,
that guy's great, by the way.
Yeah, you get it because I suck at that whole.
You know what's funny? I gave a shout out to Underdog Patch last week when we were on here, and this is what they did about Captain Wilson. Brass balls. Yeah. This was the patch they put out, so they're doing pre-orders right now. If you go to Underdog Patch at, let me get that video. But this was the patch. This patch is on the dog patch. So check on the dog patch out on Instagram. Go give them a follow. They're good. And they actually make good patches. I actually had the podcast patches made. We never put them out for sale. I don't know what to do with them. Maybe we'll host an event and sell them or something, or I'll bring them.
John, they're actually selling this one?
Yeah. He's taking pre-orders. Yeah. They did it like almost immediately after, so hysterical. Yeah.
You know what's the best about that picture? It's not even like with the picture of the ball. It's him. His smile is like so organic, right? It's so real. Like he looks like he's enjoying. He was having fun. He's like just smile, like man. You know what? He might be stupid, but I bet he's a good guy. I'd like to know.
Well, I bet you this: we would laugh our ass off if you worked with him. You'd
have fun, right?
But I wouldn't want to supervise him or be supervised by him.
No.
Yeah.
How long has he been a captain? I heard since 2021. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think like 5 years.
Gosh,
but he's like a legend in the police department for being like notoriously dumb and like, so it's like there's a lot of stories. I won't give out them because he'll know who it is. But hysterical, hysterical. Sounds like a funny bastard. But dude, honestly, like, if you're the police commissioner, you have no choice, dude. Like this guy, like you got to do something to him. But my thing is this: just make the standard. Like that's it. Be like going forward. I know what happened in 2020. I know what happened in 2021. I know what the other unprofessional NYPD did. But no, we're going back. You're going to be guided by our administrative guide, and you're not to make political statements in uniform. And if you do, there will be consequences as a result. So I would have suspended. Not that I would have suspended him, but I would have hit him with charges too, and transfer him too. Like I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't have sent him to communications though, because, like I said, he might stay there for 10 years, bro.
Yeah, it's a home run over there.
Yeah, a guy like him, you could beat those guys up. They don't care, bro. He'll come to work. He'll be eating onion raw. Like,
so what happens? Rhetorically speaking, what happens if another captain next week at a protest says, "Hey, I happen to like Zohran Mamdani. Great mayor. You should get behind him." Now, to me, that's completely not being apolitical. Do you think that person should be disciplined also? I do. If we're going to have standards, you shouldn't be expressing any opinion on politics at all, whether it's positive or negative. But I guarantee you, I'll put my money on it. If there's a captain next week who's filmed saying that he promotes and loves Zohran Mamdani, nothing will happen to him. You want to take that bet?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, but that's what I'm saying is like the standard's not there. Like, look, everyone wants to pretend that the NYPD isn't a left-wing organization, and it's like insane. It's such a left-wing organization. It's not even funny. It's like, dude, they wanted to lock us up for having a podcast. Like, I mean, come on. And it was only because we were conservative. We were on here bashing the job, saying that they were racist. They would have brought us up. We'd be giving speeches out at the police academy and at everything else. Like, come on. Like, and everyone knows it, dude. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. We'd be giving trainings out in the police academy weekly. We'd have a $5 million contract with them.
I'd like to know what Wilson's real last name is, because that's definitely not his last name. There's no way his last name is Wilson. I want to know what his real last name is. But
IMP Franco says the guy Wilson was raised in the USSR. What they did to him here in the US is nothing. He eats it for breakfast.
Oh, that's hilarious. I got a question, and I'm curious what you guys think. Rhetorically speaking, if Captain Wilson was a black captain and said the same thing, does that change anything? Do you guys think that he'd be transferred? Does that change anything, or it would be the exact same response?
If it was a right-wing talking point, you are getting you a right-wing talking point in a left-wing organization. You are getting transferred. You are getting disciplined. You are getting the book thrown at you. If you make a left-wing talking point, I don't care if you're white, if you're a midget, if you're black, if you're Hispanic, you're okay. You're fine.
Yeah. Listen, my point is, Rag rocks. I get what you're saying, brother. We know we're not stupid people. We totally get it. My point is, what the NYPD patrol guide specifically states is that you're supposed to remain from any public opinion and expressing any politics. It doesn't say whether it's positive or negative. Now, obviously, negative always looks far worse. But to your point, it shouldn't make a difference. You said it says no, Eric. When you disparage someone, it's totally different. Come on, you're smarter than that. Now, if you're saying, "Oh, this person's good," that's not right either, because you're not supposed to be expressing politics, right? You're in a position of uniform where you can actually move the needle, right? Rhetorically speaking, you could, if you have enough. If the police commissioner comes out and and says, "Hey, you should vote for Zohran Mamdani next election. Here's why." Well, that is electioneering, right? And if you're a chief of department and you say the same thing, and you're the highest uniform member, you can sway the needle. So whether you speak positively or negatively, it shouldn't be done. The point is, you're either apolitical or you're not.
Well, good luck finding a black chief in the NYPD that's going to even be bringing up conservative talking points, Eric. If he does, he gets kicked out of the Guardians Association. He gets ostracized by the other black chiefs. You know, good luck with that.
No, he's called that. You know what you call that black guy? Captain. That's what you call him.
Captain for life.
Hi, Cap.
He won't be the new rank, right? Which is not DI inspector, it's DEI inspector.
No. He's actually considered white. It doesn't matter. You know, he's a white guy. Yeah.
What is his real last name, man? There's no way his last name is Wilson, though. It's got to be like, first of all, he's Russian, right? So it's got to end with a Y. I don't wonder what his last name is. Definitely not Wilson.
IMP says it's Wilson off.
Wilson off.
It's definitely not that either. So this was a spoof video. This kid's on Instagram. I don't know his name, but I see some of his videos. Some of them are cheesy. I don't know if he was an NYPD cop or not. But this one, like I gotta go. What'd you say, Mark?
No, I said he sounds like it. You know.
I don't know. I think someone told me that he wasn't. That he was like a cop from somewhere else. They got 3/4 or something. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he was an NYPD cop, but this one's pretty funny. He's making fun of Wilson.
What? Mamdani, my boss? Mamdani, not my boss. Tell him to suck my balls. Yeah. I don't give a shit. Fuck Mamdani. Yeah, with you. Go ahead, record. I'm recording too. Stupid. I love Mam. You are pussy. What's the Mamdani gonna do to me? He gonna fire me? I'm gonna retire. Fuck Mamdani. Yeah, he not my boss. Maybe he gonna be your bosses. Not mine, asshole. Yeah, asshole captain. You see the gold? Yeah, Mamdani. He's communist, asshole. Communist bitch. Yeah. What you gonna do? You gonna follow him? Yeah? Or like you gonna follow him like the rest of the NYPD? The NYPD. What?
Stupid.
What you gonna do?
Yeah. You know what, though? He does some good spoofs on the khaki pants. You see those ones?
Yeah, well, like a little. Some of them were funny. Some of them are, you know. But he's a funny kid. Like, it's a funny account. I don't know. I don't know his name. If you guys know it, throw it out in the chat. We'll shout him out. Give him a follow. You know.
I don't think he was like, some of them are cheesy, some of them are funny, but I don't think he was a cop because he never uses like cop lingo when he does it. I think he just.
Nah, I think he was a cop. No, he was definitely a cop. Yeah, he was definitely a cop. I just forgot where.
It's pretty funny.
I think it's too spot on. He's got to have some sort of connection to the cops. It's like he knows too much of the minutia that's funny. You know.
Somebody knows. Anybody here in the chat? Anybody watching? If you know who he is, let us know. I don't know, man. Maybe he is a cop. I don't know, but some of the khaki pants ones, those are good.
Yeah. So I mean, anything else that we didn't get to today that we were supposed to?
I think we hit it all.
we didn't get to the liquor store fight. That was the only one.
No, we did. We were just tying it in with the 911 response. You know.
Yeah, I guess you could say. Yeah, I mean,
we did. You know, with the 911 response. It's
we hit the liquor store. We obviously talked about Captain Wilson. We talked about the 911 call. And we talked about DC. Yeah, that was those are definitely those are the important topics of what's going on right now. I mean, there's so much going on; it never stops. Which again, always goes to what people always tell me when we started this together, John. Like, oh, what are you gonna do when you run out of content? Nah, I don't know, man. We can't even keep up with the content, so we're not running out anytime.
No, yeah, that's too much. I mean, the amount of shit we miss in a week is insane. You know,
I do.
Totally insane. You know, just that's why I've just been putting like more videos out, like more little snippets of other things that we're not going to get to. You know, so yeah, I don't know. More anything about the aliens, because I saw a lot of people talking about it that Trump's going to bring out the aliens now.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna save that to the end, but let me post it up here. Remember a couple months ago, guys, we were telling you how things were gonna get weird in 2026. You know, we get called conspiracy theorists all the time here, and then what happens? Months later, you know, what we said happens. Okay. Again, welcome to the Finest Unfiltered, where you get tomorrow's news today, and you're gonna call us crazy, and we don't know what we're talking about, and then a year, months later, it comes out in the news. Okay. So yeah, this was a tweet from the Defense Department, or the Department of War now, and Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of War. And there's also a link in this to aliens or UFO.gov or something, where they have pictures and reports. I didn't go through it yet myself because it just dropped as we were on the show. But it tells you how wild things are in this world and the news cycle. This news cycle is moving so quickly, it's like craziness. But shout out, if you know who Lieutenant Jay-Z is, if you were in Intel a couple of years ago and you know Lieutenant Jay-Z, I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years, but if you see him, give him tell him what's up for me, and tell him I won the bet, because I told him I think it was 2021 or maybe 2020. I'm like, Lou, in a couple of years they're gonna tell us that UFOs are real. And the reason why I told him this was gonna happen is because the economic situation is actually so bad that they need all these distractions to throw against the wall to get you from not talking about it, right? And here we are. The government's telling us something that for years they told you were batshit crazy to be even bringing it up, and now they're the ones bringing it up. Okay, they're the ones showing you videos and pictures as grainy as they are, and telling you that these things are real. So again, things are about to get really bizarre in the news cycle. So
pretty interesting. Brother Rob Lucash, man, Brother Rob puts out some interesting news. He says city announced captain exam October 14, 2026, exam 6569. So that's only about 6 months away. So shout out, listen, anyone right now, if you're a lieutenant, even if you're special assignment, I mean, some people would actually argue with me. I still think you should take the test. And if that opportunity is there to get promoted, some people say, oh, lieutenant special assignment with overtime makes money. But if you can get the rank and you want to continue to move up, I think it's the better opportunity. Eventually, you'll make more money for having less tours or less hours at work. And that ultimately should be the goal, is to have more time at home with your family. So, yeah, listen, Rob, thanks for putting that out, brother. Captain exam, October 14, 2026. So get ready. If you're a lieutenant out there, take that test, and good luck to you.
Yeah, and for those of you guys, wherever you're watching or listening today, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Give us a like, give a shout out. If you're on our audios, if you could just do us a favor, make sure that you're subscribed, leave a 5-star review, or, in case of Juju or any of our other trolls, leave a negative review. It doesn't matter. But but we would appreciate that, and so, yeah, I mean, I don't think we got anything else, man. I think we're good to go. Get to the super chats, or anybody want anything before we go?
Nah, coffee and donuts, brother. 3 hours into it. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yeah, so, all right, let's do it. Mon Samurai, $20. He says, great show today, guys. Again, we are addressing the tough subjects. We need to keep these conversations going to come together as a community. God bless you guys and everyone. Stay alert, stay safe, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you for the coffee and donuts, brother. And I know, and Modern Samurai, you push back on some of the stuff I said today. That's good. I don't think, John, you say this often. I really agree. Marlon, we say it too. I don't think you should agree with everything I say or everything John or Marlon, but we should have those conversations. We all have different opinions, and we have different experiences. We all see the world differently, and that's what this is about. We should respect each other and have that communication. So shout out to you, brother. Thanks for being a great friend to Network.
Yeah, absolutely. I had someone hit me up yesterday on Instagram, and they were like, oh, I love all your stuff. I don't agree with you, though, a lot. And I'm like, I was like, if you agreed with me all the time, I would forward you my number to my psychiatrist because there's something wrong with you.
Get his number on speed dial, bro.
Yeah. Like, thanks, though. Appreciate it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So funny shit. So Nolan, he says, find us Unfiltered must have a call-in option. I volunteer to be the call screener. Make it so. So look, we do have a number. And I never done this before, but I actually lost the phone. I have no idea what I did with it. I think I left it in New York. I'm pretty sure.
That's pretty funny.
So I'll get it when I go back. I went to New York. I haven't found it. I don't know where it is. Like, number hasn't been used, so I don't know. I don't know where the hell it is. But
John, this might be the comment of the day, bro. You got to read this. This shit's hilarious. Danny Reagan won.
What is it?
John says the same joke every week, and Eric laughs like he's hearing it for the first time.
He's just a hater. Danny Reagan, Frank Reagan. He's just a hater. Don't worry about him. I don't even acknowledge. I rarely acknowledge these people because they're just, just total troll in there to detract the conversation. But like when we talk about the call-in option, that's like something, dude, that honestly just throw the whole show off. And I don't think that I want to be involved in it at all. Like maybe at some point, like there's a way to call and maybe we read a message. I don't know. I just don't like it. It just detracts, or there's a segment like at the end, like how, the executive perspective does, speak to an executive, something like that maybe. But I'll be honest, like most of the people in the chat are like, I want to address some of the things that you guys bring up, but it's totally off topic from what we're talking about. Like completely out of left field, and like we'll be here for 7 hours, and we'll never address the topic properly that we wanted to talk about. So I mean, sometimes I'm not ignoring you. We just can't do it, especially when we're doing the interviews. Like it's like so. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think the call-in option is maybe something for like once a week for a segment or something. But right now, I just don't think with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it works either, but I do agree that a call-in show for like a segment wouldn't be bad. Like if they have they bring up some topic that or maybe even a video about it, But I think a call-in segment might interrupt the flow, and I think that's where the chat does a better job of doing it, because we bring up points made in the chat all the time or questions all the time. Now we can't get to every one of them because sometimes the chat moves so fast and you lose it in the scrolling feed. But we do answer a lot of questions and bring up a lot of points in the chat.
I particularly like the idea if we could, but we just have so many facets going on. We have so many topics. We have the chat moving. There's a lot going on in the chat. Believe me, there's a lot of stuff in the chat. I read everything, and I'm like, wow, I would love to address it. It's just so much it would throw the conversation off. We're already going for 3 and 4 hours at a time. If we had call-ins, man, we would need another hour or two. I do like it, but against it, maybe it's something we could do every once in a while. Definitely something we could talk about and explore. Like I said, I do like it. I'm not totally opposed to it, but I do think that we would just need another hour or two, and we're already running, close to 4 hours sometimes. But hey, it's always good to have these conversations.
Yeah, Mon Samurai says, super speeders unite. Step on that gas and let it happen. They can't stop us all. Can't drive 55. It's funny. Like they're all. So if you look at like Ben Furness or like Gersh Kuntzman or the super speeders blog, and there's some female too. That's, all of a sudden they're very concerned with what I'm tweeting about online, and they're all commenting to what I say. But today, what the theme of today is talking about like people trying to cross the street and they're so afraid of getting hit by a car, or a mother walking down the block with her baby carriage and how she's so afraid of the vehicles, but they fail to mention how afraid they are of the electric bikes and the super speeders flying down. I mean, and how many people are getting struck by these bikes consistently, these unregistered, unlicensed bikes that do up to 35, sometimes 55 miles an hour on New York City streets, on the sidewalks. you know. So I mean, like, it's so funny to watch. Like, I'm gonna hit them up later and see what they think about the super speeders on bicycles and on electric bikes, because, you know, just not even 3 weeks before they started pushing this nonsense, they were talking about celebrating that the NYPD was no longer going to criminalize bicyclists. You know, so their whole thing about traffic safety, it's just so full of shit, dude. It really is. It's so full of shit.
Yeah, and also I think with this agenda, I thought about this. I don't think it's going to stop at speeds. I think they're going to find other avenues to hit people in their cars. I think next is going to be seatbelts or cell phones. I think maybe they'll have a specific type of seatbelt you'll have to have in your car, a specific lock on that seatbelt. There could be something you have to have a specific type of Bluetooth device for your phone. So I don't think it's just going to stop at the speeds. I think this is just the beginning, and it's just and we're really infringing on privacy and just becoming a horrible place to live. I think it was Danny Reagan who said here, like, oh, you know, because I'm saying, why would you want to live in New York City anymore? It just sounds like a terrible place to live anymore. And he's like, where else would you live? I hate to tell you, brother, but there's a whole world out there, and I've been all over, and there's a lot of places out there you can really enjoy life and have a lot more freedom than you do in New York. Unfortunately, New York was an amazing place. I grew up there, but I don't think it's amazing anymore.
I mean, I'll always disagree. I think New York's the mecca of the world. You know, I like, if I would still be living there today if it wasn't for what happened. You know,
would you be living there with all these, besides the job?
Yeah,
in retirement, with all these speeds, infringement on your rights and the Constitution, and all these lefties that want to put all these bike lanes and get rid of your cars and all the taxes, would you still want to be there? Honestly, if you say yes, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I would probably be in city council getting shit thrown at me every day, but, you know, that's probably what I would do. You know, like, it is what it is. I mean, like, you know, I'm so, like, you know, I went there 9 times last year. Like, you know, this year I took a little hiatus for a few months, but I'll be back next month, you know, for a while. Like, I love New York, dude. I really do. I think I think it's the best city in the world. If you want to get away from city life, I totally understand. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things city life prevents you from having: open land. You know, there's some nice parks throughout the city, but, like, they're not the best. You know, they're not like the parks you would see outside of it when you get out to more rural areas of America. But I still say, like, when you're looking to earn money and do all this stuff, look, they're trying very hard to kill it. I mean, it could be that South Florida becomes the next New York City, because LA's on par to kill it. Chicago's on par to kill it. Miami's trying to do their best to kill themselves. And I know a lot of people move down there as well, but there's a lot of this same nonsense happening in parts of South Florida that aren't happening in other parts of South Florida that are growing. So, you know, it could be that becomes the financial mecca of the world. I don't see it. I don't see it. I still think Wall Street's going to be Wall Street. I still think, you know, if you want to be a cop, people think of the NYPD. You know, the one thing that we did miss, and now I remember it, I couldn't think of it, was I did a video on it yesterday and I put it out. It was about LA City Council. They voted 14-0, unanimously voted to stop LAPD officers from being able to pull over cars for minor infractions. And I think that push has been happening here. I had the head of the Vera Institute, I can't remember her name, but she had reached out to me a while back, and she was basically like, and they're like a progressive think tank, the Vera Institute. She's like, oh, you know, I want to come on and discuss having cops stop doing car stops because, you know, of the racist impact, and it makes these stops, there's more chance of violence and all. And I was like, yeah, we'd love to have you on, you know, come on, you know, we'd love to hear your opinion. You know, I was real cordial about it, nice. And then she never came on. But, you know, I think the reason she never came on is because it's really hard to take these academic things that you think are going to work in real life and then actually speak about them in long form and see how they would work practically with people who have been in law enforcement, who understand the things that you're talking about. So I think that's why she kind of backed out of that interview, because, you know, that's what's going to happen in LA. You know, it hasn't fully passed. Now the police board has to approve it. LA's like way they bring in laws a little different from New York City. But more than likely, I would say their woke police board more than likely puts that into effect. And, you know, what they're saying is you can't pull over vehicles for minor crimes. And in the video, I spoke about all of the people who were arrested as a result of minor crimes, like getting pulled over, like Timothy McVeigh, the Boston bomber. I can't think off the top of my head the rest of them, but like there was a bunch of serial killers that were caught. And those are egregious and those are extreme, right? Those are extreme circumstances. But think about it as terms of New York. They're pushing this super speeder bill. Yet they're going to tell you they don't want cops pulling over cars for minor infractions like, oh, missing plate, broken taillight, equipment violations, tinted windows, all of these things. How would you ever tag that vehicle in this super speeder? You wouldn't, because like Marlon said, the laws that they're pushing are only for the law abiding. And the rest of the rhetoric they're pushing is to actually embolden bad actors. So it like none of it makes sense to me. It's really hard to think about like all of like what they want and where they're going with it, because there's like two different motives happening at the same time. Like we're emboldening bad actors, but we're pushing down on the middle class and the people that follow the laws. It's so weird, dude. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to push back, John. I think the New York. I think you might like the idea of New York, and you like the old New York. I'm not so sure that old New York exists anymore. And I look at like parts of Brooklyn that I used to go to, and just go to a restaurant or go to a bar, and those parts don't really. They just don't have the same vibe anymore. Yeah, sure. I'm older now, and it's not the same anymore. But I'm telling you, you can't even find parking there anymore. To even if you did want to go. And the thing is, I think that a lot of the people that a lot of New Yorkers have moved out of New York. New York, a lot of New York are just transplants, and a lot of those people who have left are like, a lot of them are the small business owners who made the place really nice. I reminisce a lot about the New York City of like the late 90s, early 2000s, and in particular Manhattan. I had an uncle who had a secondhand store there, so I used to be there all the time. But I used to love Manhattan because you just walk around and you find a hole in the wall, and it's like a food spot, or it's like a a cafe or something. And those hole in the wall spots aren't there anymore. It's now all commercial, and it's now largely unaffordable. So for me, it's like there's very little interest for me to go to Manhattan right now, because even if I did want to, first of all, it's expensive. Second, I can't find parking. So to me, a lot of New York has lost its soul, and I'm not sure if South Florida is going to pick up that soul completely, because in a lot of ways, like Miami is very like very glitzy and over commercialized, right? But my point is that New York that we think about, I'm not so sure it exists anymore. So.
It's funny you say that, and I think the same thing, John. I can't speak for you, but I honestly think that you're living, in my opinion, in yesterday, in a sense, as far as loving New York. Because I grew up in New York. I loved it too. I think about New York City like it was a place I loved, even though it was gritty. It had that vibe. There was something about it, and I don't think it's the same New York now. And I think, John, maybe I'm wrong. Of course, you're going to respond. I push back too. I think that you're thinking about the New York it was, and going there 9 times a year. I don't think you're getting this really the feel of what it is to be back in New York. Because every time I think about New York, and I speak to my mother who still lives in New York, it's just not the same place. And it's a bunch of transplants. You said it yourself, John, that the New York accent is even something that's starting to dissipate. So it's really not the same New York anymore. And I got to be honest, I traveled the entire country, and I always thought I would be dying to go back to New York. Like, I can't wait. And honestly, it's just not on the top of my list. I'm not afraid to go back. I'm going back in June for a fundraiser for Derek. But I just don't see myself living there anymore. I've been to places throughout the entire country now where I had so much freedom. And Danny Reagan, you're asking where I'm at right now. I'm in Nevada right now. And I tell you right now, I'm in America. And I feel more free in Nevada than I did in New York, surprisingly. And I love New York. It was an amazing place. It was. There is no city like it. Don't get me wrong. It's the most densely populated city. It was a great time, but it's not the same vibe. And yeah, they still have amazing food. It really isn't. You think about I think about like the old days of what New York was, right? It was an amazing place. I even think about anybody ever watched Miami Vice, right? If you ever watched Miami Vice, in the first episode of Miami Vice is 1984, and the actor who plays Tubbs, it was Philip Michael Thomas. He's in an unmarked car. He's by himself, and he's in New York. He's chasing a perp, and he makes his way down to Miami eventually, right? And the big deal is all the cops in Miami like, wow, he's from New York. Wow, he's from New York. Is it the same thing? Does everybody want to be in New York? Do people still idolize New York? I don't think so. I think that's completely changed. John, what is your response, brother?
Yeah, no, I don't think you guys are looking at it. Like, I don't think you guys are looking at the big picture of it. Has New York changed? Do I miss old New York? Absolutely. I miss old Bensonhurst. That hasn't been there for 30 years. You know, that maybe even longer. Maybe Bensonhurst probably like the old Italian version of like Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Dyka. That's probably gone 35 years. You know, like do I miss that 100%? Staten Island, do I miss that less dense populated Staten Island from 20, 30 years ago? Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I lived there throughout COVID. I lived there in 2022. I'm there basically. I mean, like I'm basically like a part-time resident, you know. And the thing I think is like when you look at these different cities, first of all, there's no city that compares to New York City at all on the scale of it. And I have noticed things have changed. It's not the city that never sleeps anymore. In fact, New York City does go to sleep now. That has changed in that aspect. It's definitely becoming more commercialized. But you know, I speak to a lot of young kids often, and you know, and I speak to a lot of people that have moved out of the city, whether they've moved to Tennessee or they've moved to Florida or they've moved to the West Coast or they've moved all over North Carolina, South Carolina. And there's one thing that I've noticed about all of them. You know, when it's time for their kids to go to school, sometimes they go back to New York to go to school. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they stay where they're at or they go to a different state and they go to school. But when it's time to go to work, all these kids want to start their career in New York City. And it still remains the same. Like if you want to start your career in law enforcement, or you want to start your career in the fire department, or you want to become a teacher, you know, there is no place like New York where you're going to get the same benefits and the same money. And that is going to remain a coveted position. And, you know, what New York does is what these other places can't do. They attract young talent. They attract young talent and they pay the young talent and they keep them there. Where they lose them, and it's always been a New York problem, dude. It's always been a New York problem. Where they lose them, there aren't many people in New York that were like us. We're born and raised there, right? Like there are not many people that were like us. But New York's problem always is as these people make money, as they get older, as they then become family, they become having kids and all that stuff, then they want to move out for a nicer, less dense life with a better quality of life, with more property, with more land. And, you know, but you still see it. Like you see all the foo-foo rich people. Like you got a guy like Jim Walden, right? I'm a New Yorker. No, you're not. No, you're fucking not. Like you grew up in Philly, you own a home in Greenwich, Connecticut, or wherever the fuck you are, and you got an apartment in the city. You know, you look at guys like, you know, they grew up in New York City and they make it. They go buy a house in Greenwich, Connecticut, or a house in the Hamptons, and they got an apartment in the city. I'm a New Yorker. No, you're fucking not. Like, you don't live there anymore. You were in New York. Like, you know what I mean? And everyone still has that footprint in the city. And every major business still has that footprint in the city. Even all the bullshit that's happening with Mamdani, with that stupid thing that he did where he went and knocked on that CEO's door, basically docks his house and is like, I'm going to tax the rich. And the guy's pissed and he's like, oh, I'm going to take all these jobs out of New York. I'm going to tell you right now, anybody that believes that, let me know, because I got some fucking water to sell you, because it's a bunch of bullshit. Because it's the same thing that what's his face was saying, Katzimatidis. Oh, I'm gonna shut down all my grocery stores. No, you're fucking not. Now you're kissing Zohran Mamdani ass, and we told you that back then too. And it's the same thing with all these heads of business. Was it smart of Mamdani to do that? Absolutely not. It was so stupid. Even that moron Eric Adams or the other idiot Cuomo, they would have never did anything that stupid. Because they would be beholden to the big business and whatever. But like, I don't think that changes anytime soon. The big business still going to want a footprint there. Young people, when it's time to go to work, they're going to seek out jobs, whatever it is, whether it's in tech, whether it's in finance, whether it's in policing, whether it's in fighting fires. New York City remains the mecca of the world. So, I mean, whether we're there or we're not there, New York City will go on without us. And there will be waves, 100%. But I still say right now, we get a deal for $250 million. I guarantee you, both of you have an apartment in Manhattan.
So I just want to make it. I just want to speak on the
cracker now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
staying
no
in
way
Queens?
I would live in Manhattan. No way.
You know,
if I want to, no, I'm sorry, Eric.
No. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was gonna say there are. If I want to replicate that experience, there are other cities that I think I could get that now. That same Manhattan experience, because again, the problem is New York. There used to be different parts of Manhattan.
Where you going? Columbus, Ohio, or Madison, Wisconsin? And you're gonna go to the dialogue unit? Like where?
No, if I'm getting, you mean if I'm getting a $1 million
bro, you ever go to
apartment?
Jacksonville? Jacksonville's like, you ever see the movie I Am Legend?
Yeah,
dude, you could like walk around the city and not see anybody. Like you go to Miami, and then you go to Miami. It's like this big. It's so dense. There's so much traffic, and you're like, what the hell do you want to do there? Like, what city? What city are you got in the Manhattan experience? Not happening anymore.
I think you'd get that in Miami now.
Chicago, dumbed down version of New York City. Little cleaner, still has all the problems. Boston, little cleaner, smaller, still has all the same problems. What city?
Listen,
and the worst winter.
There's no doubt about it. And I've been all over the country. There is no city like New York City. I think I even said it last episode. There's no city with the density that it's unmatched. There's no doubt about it. Now, I'll be honest, that was a dream of mine to live in Manhattan. Believe it or not. I lived in the Bronx, Staten Island, Bronx, Queens. I lived in every borough except for Manhattan. I always wanted to live in Manhattan. And I say was. At this point, no. I think you can find similar in small areas of San Diego, some small spots of LA, some spots in Chicago. If you want the real New York experience, there's nothing like Manhattan. There's no doubt about it. But with all these draconian laws and all these crazy lefties, I just wanted to mention, going back to what you said earlier about that vote in city council of with LAPD as far as the traffic stops. What makes the laws much different in LA than I was out there is the fact that LA County is huge. And believe it or not, in LA County, there's actually a lot of conservative areas. So I do think, because LAPD is the city in Los Angeles. So they'll vote that in the city, but I don't see that spreading out to the entire county, because there is a lot of conservative parts of the county, which is far different from New York City, right? Because it's 5 boroughs and each borough is its own county. If that happens in New York City, it's scary. But I do think there's definitely a difference with LA, because Los Angeles County is huge, and there are still a lot of conservative parts of it.
Yeah, Modern Samurai, I agree with that too. I agree. Tampa, St. Pete, and that would be my pick.
Fuck out of here! Come on.
No, I think
come on,
it's
bro.
a better
I've been to Clearwater. I've been to St. Pete. I like them. They're nice places to visit. I like them. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a young kid starting out in life. Catch me in New York City, bro.
No way.
Catch
Well,
me in New York City.
see, here's the thing. If you're young, you don't know about the old New York. The problem with New York is that there used to be different parts of New York. Like if you want the glitzy New York, there's a part for that. If you want the commercialized New York, if you want like the hole in the wall New York, Manhattan, there are parts of that. But now, to me, I don't see any. It's all the same thing now.
What about San Francisco?
Huh?
San Francisco is probably the closest you'll get to New York.
I think San Francisco. I don't like it. I don't like the geography of it. I don't like the politics of it. I think San Francisco is another one. It's. I don't think it's. Is it as large as New York? Would you consider it a huge city? Like I know people like San Diego. I know like the West Coast. Like maybe the West Coast more mirrors New York City than anything like anywhere else on the East Coast. But like I still, I mean the weather's great.
San Francisco, San Francisco's politics are as crazy as New York. I don't think there's a crazy amount of homeless, but I
honestly think they're worse.
But San Francisco is a huge city. It's a walkable city. It's very similar to New York. Obviously, the geography is different with the hills and the mountains. But I think the city itself, I think San Francisco is the closest of any city you're going to get to New York, even closer than Chicago.
Well, if we're talking about like geography, urban sprawl, and how about walkability, then I agree. Because
Yeah.
even like Tampa, St. Pete, and all that, they're different. It's like if you took Manhattan per se and you split it up and you moved it, you spread it out apart, right? So you can't just walk all over the place like you can in New York City. But again, the overall experience, I think it's much better than the current version of New York. Okay. But what I also think is that in the years coming, New York City is going to lose more people. I think New York City, the best, and ironically, the best way to save New York is if like 2 million people left and it became the New York of with the population of like the early 90s. Because I think the New York that we have now is partly unmanageable, and that's partly a byproduct of it being so big now and there being so many people in here. So
Look, I think I'm just partial because I was born and raised there. I love New York. I still have family there. My parents are buried there. Like my whole family is buried all throughout it. So I think maybe I'm a little partial, but I will say, like my father, when he was older, I remember one night because my father grew up in the projects on the Lower East Side. So I remember one, it was like a summer evening. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to go to the city. Why don't you come with me? I call him up. Nah, I'm not going there. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I was like, come on. I was like, you lived there your whole life. Like, come on, let's go to this. Come to the city. We'll go to a nice restaurant that I know there. He's like, nah, if you want to go to Jersey, I'll come with you, but I'm not going to the city. I was like, you don't want to come to Manhattan with me? He's like, no. I was like, okay. And he was born there, so like, and it wasn't, and at the time it was still like, it was not, it was pre-COVID. It was pre all this other stuff, New York was a happening place at the time, and he didn't want to go there. And I think there's always kind of that natural progression about getting away from city life. Some people love it, but it's definitely not for everybody. But like my father was born into it, raised into it, and then eventually he's like, I need out of here. Like, I don't want to go back. Like, and so I don't know. I just think like that's my main thing is like who's really attracting these young kids. Like they say Texas is, they say Florida is. I still say it's the coastal cities, and it's New York, and it's like, it's the coastal cities that are dominating, attracting young talent to go into work. And they're coming from all of these like neighborhood like areas or like more rural areas as well too. Like when they're looking to get into business or make it like go big, do big business or whatever, go work for major corporations, they're going to the coastal cities. I don't know. I know Texas is growing. I know Austin is growing. I just don't see that ever going anywhere unless Zohran Mamdani like is really 20 times dumber than Eric Adams, which I don't think is possible, but who knows?
I gotta push back to that too, because when we grew up, it was different, right? We went out, you met people, it was much more social gatherings. You met girls by going out to clubs, going to lounges. The young kids today, they don't really need that type of density. They meet, they do a lot of this stuff on Zoom. It's remote. They meet people by internet. They don't really have the same type of social gatherings. I don't think they need that dense urban sprawl like we needed or we enjoyed. So I think it's different. I think they're fine with it.
Yeah, but how are you going to go protest if not for New York City? That's the new, if you want to be a career protester, I mean, you're going to New York City, right? Like you get paid and then you go meet you all unshowered for 3 days and you go together and you protest, and you fight the man.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe that's a business we should get into. We should have portable showers on the street, go near protest. Just, hey, you want a shower?
Dude, somebody reached out to me that they provide protesters. I gotta remember who the hell that was. They want to come on and talk about it. What?
With showers?
No, like if we want to host an event, we call him up and we pay him money and he gives us protesters.
Oh man, jeez.
Yeah.
Or like, we're hosting a Finest Unfiltered event. We want to make it look good. We call him up, we pay him money, and he sends like a couple thousand people there.
I never understood this. I know they're trolls, but I never understood this dumb comment like by Danny Reagan and Joe 14% body fat. Like, I don't consider Staten Island New York City. It's Jersey. I don't know. Staten Island pays a lot of taxes, to be part of New York City. So it's just as much as New York City as any brother. I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah,
Still.
then he doesn't consider parts of Queens then to be part of New York or parts of Brooklyn that
Yeah, what
don't
about
look
like Douglas
like
and
it.
Queens?
That's
That's like
Right.
that's not really like Douglas and Queens is like parts of Queens like that, like or Malba. Like when you're there, you're like, I'm in the city.
yeah.
And there's parts of Staten Island like that too. Like, oh, I'm in
Right.
the city.
Yeah.
It's just a dumb comment, right? Because the reality is, I mean, only a couple of spots in downtown Brooklyn and a couple of spots in Queens, and not in the Bronx. Do you see skyscrapers all over Manhattan? So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's just stupid.
No, it's dumb. He says it here, Reagan. I mean, look, he's a troll, but he says, look, John, you're not even from New York City. You're from Staten Island. You know what? 100%. My later teenage years were in Staten Island. I consider myself a Staten Islander. I lived there much longer than I ever lived in Brooklyn. I only lived in Brooklyn until I was 12. So not a long time, but definitely Brooklyn was shaping me. Now, if I would have said that I stayed on Staten Island every day and I never went out into Brooklyn, into the city, into Queens, into the Bronx, then maybe I would agree with you. Maybe I'm saying, it's not really part of New York City. It's a lot different. It's a different vibe. It's a more residential vibe. Most of Staten Island has, when you get to the South Shore of Staten Island, has a lot different vibe than the rest of New York City. However, Mid-Island, North Shore, I'm going to say you're out of your mind. It's New York City. I mean, it's just like Brooklyn or anywhere else or Queens or the Bronx.
100%.
Which is the parts that I grew up in, by the way. But the thing is, like, I lived in New York City, dude. I lived in Staten Island. I don't know. I can't give you time periods where I didn't go over that bridge every day, or I wasn't in Manhattan once a week, or I wasn't going to Astoria, Queens, or I wasn't, you know what I mean? And if you weren't going out there doing all the stuff, then I guess you could kind of say Staten Island's different and you're secluded off from the rest of New York City. But for me, I was always all over. So, like, to me, I know Brooklyn better than I know Staten Island. I know parts of Manhattan better than I know Staten Island.
So these guys don't even know.
I had a girlfriend in Brooklyn forever. Like, I was taking the bus there before I could even drive, back and forth. S78, baby, like over and over again, then jumping on the trains. So, it's definitely a different vibe, and I'll hear you, but 100% what Marlon said. There's parts of Queens, and there's even parts of the Bronx that have a different vibe than the rest of New York City.
True.
If you're in Country Club in the Bronx,
yeah.
If you got knocked out and you woke up in Country Club in the Bronx, you'd be like, man, I'm in some rich part of Staten Island or Queens. So what are you talking about? You could be in Country Club or parts of Pelham Bay, like you have no idea you're in the Bronx. So
yeah,
clearly, that's all right, Danny Reagan. Now he's trying to say now he switched it and said you're a Floridian, and they tell me I'm in Nevada. Yeah. I'm sorry, we're not in New York forever. There's other places in the world. I do love New York, but I love to travel.
If his point is that we're not New Yorkers for living in the outer boroughs, then I'm fine with that because I'm a separationist right now. I'm a Queens separationist. Okay, I want Queens to separate from the city, and we don't need the city anymore. If I want the city experience, I'll go to Astoria. I'll go to Long Island City. I don't need to go to Manhattan. Why I need to go to Manhattan for? Okay, so build the wall. Let's build a wall and separate ourselves from the savages in Brooklyn. Okay, we don't need y'all. Okay.
Well, and let's be honest, John Mullen, you probably agree with me. Like when I think of a kid from New York City, I don't think of Manhattan, to be honest. Maybe Harlem, but I think of Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, the Bronx. That's really what I think of. I in my travels, I never really met that many kids that actually grew up in Manhattan. And if they did, I knew some people from Manhattan. They were kind of elitist. They went to private schools. It was a far different upbringing than the rest of the boroughs.
Oh, Juju joined us. Juju, is it you that they're talking about on Streets Blog? Because they said that there's a John Jay professor who's walking on crutches and he's afraid, and a former cop, and he's afraid to cross the street. Is it you that Streets Blog's quoting? Let us know, bro.
Sounds like it to me.
Sounds like it, Sounds like it.
You know what I'm saying? Am I right, though? When you think of New York City kids, you thought of the kids that grew up in the outer boroughs.
Yeah, not Manhattan. Yeah, not Manhattan.
No,
not Manhattan. I still I'm friends with a bunch of people from Manhattan. I make fun of them all the time. Like, he's not from he's from Manhattan. He's a rich city kid. Like, he's not,
Okay, yeah. I think I have to make a separate my comments, because when I was making those comments, I'm talking about Manhattan, okay? Because I love my little part of New York where it is now, and it's still, even though again a lot of things are different here, it's still that little part of the old school New York, and that old school New York is still in little enclaves in the outer boroughs, but it ain't in Manhattan. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, spot on, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, 2029 is coming. I'm like, I got the itch. I might move back. I might be a resident again. Let's say.
You and John Choker run together
until the winter time comes and you got to shovel that snow, John.
No, yeah. Well, if I move back, the first thing I'm doing is I'm breaking up my whole driveway and I'm putting the heat coils in. It's like literally the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take a sledgehammer to the front of my driveway and I'm going to stick heat coils in it and then have somebody come and concrete it. Beautiful concrete.
John, let's be honest. The second you go back for New York winter, now you got the Florida blood, man. You're gonna be back in 2 seconds, man.
Yeah, dude. Last winter was bad. But you don't fucking feel that shit, your blood definitely thins out, but you get used to it. I'm there every Christmas through New Year's. Like I'm there for a while at that period, and last year was freezing though. But last year was a crazy winter.
I don't know if I'm built for that anymore. I remember, when I was a kid, I could wear T-shirts and shorts in the winter and be fine. But now I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's different when you're old,
Yeah, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing I hated was I always hated the winter though. I always hated it. I was always like, I'm not built for this. And like living in sunny Florida now, like being able to get winter all year long and longer days and go on walks even when it's cool. I'm really spoiled with that shit, dude. Like, that's something like that. The grayness of New York, I don't miss at all. Like, I won't lie about that.
Yeah.
But I never liked that. I said that my whole life. I was like, I'm not built for this. I'm not built for this. So, all right, let's continue on. We went.
Yeah.
Dude, I even forgot about the coffee and donuts for a minute.
Yeah. So, Modern Samurai, you guys know firsthand how much the city has changed with 12 years on the Dems in charge. New York City is great, but there are places who have really improved during that time. Different, safer, cleaner. I agree. But again, I go back to the young kid factor, like tell me where young kids are moving. I love New York City, but honestly, after being in Florida, it's hard to go back. No pride in ownership, dirty citizens, don't care, and people that get outvoted by people that have no skin in the game. Yeah, I mean, the politics in New York City sucks. That's one thing I agree. And yet people get hit on sidewalks by unregistered, unlicensed, and uninsured scooters, e-bikes. And, Juju's very worried about it. He gave a comment to Street's blog. And Anthony says, good show today. Thanks for keeping us informed. Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate you, brother. We did that one. Anthony says, I would like to know if he was a tool in the precinct and how he treats cops before I start saying he's a hero. I just think he was dumb.
That's hilarious.
Look, I've heard a lot of talk about him, that he's a moron, that he's this, he's that, he's an idiot as a cop. He used to write 150 summonses. They had to tell him to slow down. He was eating onions while he was on his foot post and impact, like they were apples. But I haven't heard that he's like a douche boss. So look, there's a lot of guys in the NYPD that are just straight weirdos, dude. And they're funny. They're like unintentionally funny dudes. And like, if you wrote a comic about them, you would cry. And if people that worked with him told people stories about him, they would think it was fiction and it wasn't real. And it's 100% legit. And I think he's just one of those really funny dudes. And he's dumb as shit. I got your back, Wilson. Don't worry about it. If I was your Captain Endowment Association president, I got your back. I came out online for you, even though nobody else did. Yeah.
I hear someone put in the comments here that his last name is actually Wilsonovsky. So Wilsonovsky, shout out to you, brother. Captain Wilsonovsky.
I don't believe IMP. I don't believe it.
Oh, it's in Franco? Is that it?
Yeah. J2581. He gave a super sticker. it's told to you so back when says you need to accelerate to avoid a crash and can't. Well, that's one of the other things with that super speeder thing is like, how is that really going to work? What about when you need to punch the gas to get onto the highway? What about if you need to get out of the way of something? Like, you know, there's a lot of things there. I don't like that technology, and I think it 100% will cause definitely some problems. And, you know, but don't worry, the lawmakers, after they pass it, they'll just give the company a shield that you can't sue them. So. Min Shooter 9 donated $20 to the podcast. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the coffee and donuts, bro.
The Finest 25 says present for duty. Another spot on week of shows and guests. Thank you, sir. Thank you for always being here. We appreciate you guys. All right, gentlemen, let's start wrapping it up.
Yeah, let's start wrapping it up. Almost 4 hours into it. I love it.
Yeah. We're gonna drop a stream.
Hey, look, hey, Marlon, Danny wants to go on a date with you. That's hilarious.
Don't tease us with a good time.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that. You know,
Danny's got a little man crush. He must be in Queens too.
Yeah,
that's all right. What do they say? What's that old saying? I'm not gay, but my boyfriend is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, people. So yeah, I think a great show. Had a lot of fun. Thank you guys for hanging out with us this Friday. And like I said, if you haven't already, please make sure you like, share, subscribe wherever you're watching or listening this. If you could leave us a comment, if you could leave us a review, if you're on the audio podcast, we appreciate you. Our views are up big, but the long form's been hurting. Our long form views, I mean, they're up there, but they could be a lot higher. Our shorts do much, much better. So if you guys could help us get that up there, we'd appreciate it. Liking and commenting definitely pushes us up in the algorithm. So we'd appreciate it if you guys do that.
Yeah, I want to say shout out to everyone. Thank you to our friends and listeners. Thank you so much for all the engagement in chat. It makes a huge difference. We appreciate it. It's Friday. It's a roundtable. I want to say shout out to all the women out there that are mothers. Happy Mother's Day to you. So, guys, take your women out this weekend. Make sure you get your reservations in. That's the biggest restaurant day of the year. So Sunday is Mother's Day. So for all the women out there, happy Mother's Day to you. Thank you for keeping the world going. Thank you for all that you do. I think being a mother is the hardest job in the world. You know, men, we go out there and work. It's a tough job. But being a mom is no joke. And so, listen, shout out to you. Thank you, everyone, for being here on this show. Close to 4 hours. Yeah, good stuff. A lot of topics here. Thank you, John and Marlon, as always. And thank you to the friends and family and our family of the Finest Unfiltered. So good roundtable. I have a lot of stuff for you next week. Just keep it going. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. See, this is, we talk a lot about some of your comments, guys, get rejected by YouTube. But look at this. I just try to let you guys know to smash those like buttons.
Smash. Oh, you can't say smash.
Yeah. Look at that. It's ridiculous. So
That's
you see, we have no control over that. YouTube even rejects our comments sometimes. Yeah. But anyway.
Do you think it would be toxic masculinity if we did like a smash or pass segment like we do? We bring up.
Man. YouTube is weird, man. That algorithm is like, it just don't make any sense. But yeah, guys, thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, if you're on patrol, keep stay in the game and stay alert. It's summertime, and you know what happens in the summertime, right? Anyway, I'll see you next week.
All right, people.
Captain Wilson, brother.
Captain Wilson, shout out to you, brother. You got an open invite on the Finest Unfiltered, bro. So that's it. We'll leave you with that. So and stay on the job, bro. Don't let them force you out, bro. We need you out there, bro.
I just want to say, Captain Wilson, if you want some motivation, I'll introduce you to Captain Ruben. There's a guy who never let the job get to him. Ruben, shout out to you, brother. So Wilson, nice job,
Ruben's
bro.
Sick, bro. Ruben's got how many? What does he have? Like 30-something years on the job now?
He's been a captain longer than people have been in the police department.
Ruben is hysterical, dude. And I don't think he's got a car either. I don't think he has a take-home call.
No, he never does.
He just won't leave, bro. He just refuses. Like he just stays. I think he's got the same white shirt from the day he made captain, and I think he's been a captain like 30 years. It's not even white, dude. It's like straight yellow, bro. It's yellower than this. Like it's insane. It's insane. So, all right, peoples, let's get out of here. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you on Monday.
All right.
He's a temporary. He's extended. Temporary.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani
You don't
is
like
saying
Mamdani,
it's
but he's
expendable.
your boss. Nuts. You want a minute? He's your boss. He's like temporary. He's your boss. Is he your boss though? Is he your boss? He's your boss. He's your boss. Exactly. He's what? He's an embarrassment to all nuts. Yo, you saying your mayor is an embarrassment? Not my mayor. All Democrats say no. They still He's a temporary. He's extended. Temporary.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani
You don't
is
like
saying
Mamdani,
it's
but he's
expendable.
your boss. Nuts. You want a minute? He's your boss. He's like temporary. He's your boss. Is he your boss though? Is he your boss? He's your boss. He's your boss. Exactly. He's what? He's an embarrassment to all nuts. Yo, you saying your mayor is an embarrassment? Not my mayor. All Democrats say no. They still human race. He's a temporary.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?